Oh yeah, I'll just
says it's good.
All right.
So
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the TTV podcast, episode 317. I'm Messa.
I'm Var.
I'm Ven.
I'm Envy.
I'm the XX Trooper. What is the name order?
Oh my god.
I'm Haley. We almost had it.
Almost.
Oh,
I did it right
come
too.
on, X.
I didn't
Did it right.
see where it is. I was panicking.
We didn't post it. We just used common sense.
Yeah, how do you not
I
know
don't
the freaking
have
name
common
order at this
sense.
point?
Perfectly without a
I'm in
name order.
Norway, you know. Around movie.
Your last, unless Haley is in the freaking podcast, in which case she's lost. When people
Weird,
join,
alright?
dude.
On a TTV podcast for a while. It's just been Brickfeed, and it's just.
Yes, okay. Endgame spoilers. If you haven't watched it, leave. Okay, now that I've said that.
Well, okay, no. Hold up now. Hold up. Before we do spoilers, let's give our review of the movie and talk about all the things that we liked, without
Fair.
the spoilers.
Okay,
It's
yeah.
impossible.
We'll
Go
do
watch
it.
the
We'll
movie.
do an in-depth review of non-spoilers.
Oh, dang it.
Okay.
So,
I didn't not mean
go
to
see
do
the
that.
movie.
Go
All
see the
right,
movie.
now
Go
that
see
was
the movie.
that was my non.
Endgame spoilers. If you haven't
No.
watched it, leave.
Break.
Don't actually count.
Yeah, stop. No, we're gonna be talking about spoilers, guys. There really is.
You
no way
can't
to talk
talk about the
spoilers.
movie without spoilers. It's impossible.
Yeah.
And you can't even judge it as like really a standalone movie because it's the culmination to like what a 22 film
Yeah.
saga, isn't it? You just gotta go see it
That
for
is,
yourself. You care
that
all
is
of the
true,
MCU.
Unlike Infinity War, which you could probably get away with without having all the context of the MCU. I mean, it would be a little difficult, but you could still probably
possible.
watch it. This
I haven't
movie,
watched-
you cannot. This movie really does require you to have watched everything to truly experience it the
Mhm.
way it's meant to be.
There's a
watched.
couple of movies where it's especially apparent. Like you have to have seen this movie to understand it, but they also reference every other movie in it. So
Yeah, this is the one movie where having seen every single one
Yeah,
will
everything
absolutely
matters.
it will absolutely increase your
It'll-
enjoyment of the film.
it's like a celebration of being a Marvel fan.
Yeah,
Bingo.
It
Definitely.
really is. There's just a nice nod to literally every movie.
It's really a shame though because of just how successful that the MCU's been, and especially Infinity War. There are a lot of people that feel pressure to go and watch the latest cool Marvel movie that everybody's gonna go see. So I've seen a lot of people that have seen next to nothing, maybe Infinity War at best. Some people that are going in
I'll
and
tell
seeing
you right
Endgame
now,
as like
if
the
you're one
only
of those
thing.
people,
It's
you're
a
wasting
real
your time.
shame. Yeah, it's a real shame.
this
That they're
movie has
gonna
nothing
do
for
that.
you if you're not into
Nope.
the
Yeah,
MCU. at this
like,
point.
It's got cool
really-
visuals. It's got funny
You're
jokes.
way too late in the
Yeah.
game. You should have hopped on the hype train a long time ago.
And I know like there are some people who label that as a con against the movie, and we'll be talking about that later on, believe me. But like you got to understand the context of what you're watching. They're not lying to you. They're not being duplicitous. They're not trying to trick you into seeing something you won't get. The marketing's been very clear. This is the end of a saga. It's like reading the 7th Harry Potter book without
Yeah,
reading any of the other six.
all the marketing has promoted. Oh,
You're not
is
gonna
this
get
the
it.
22nd film? Look at all these other movies.
Speaking
that came
of-
before.
It's called Endgame for a reason,
Speaking of the marketing literally shows absolutely nothing about what this film.
and
Yep.
it's brilliant.
They did
It's
good.
so brilliant.
They
did
know
great
that you're
job.
in it. Like if
Yeah.
you're not interested in the MCU, then it's not for you. And the marketing says as much.
Yeah, and
Yup.
I didn't even catch
And
that
it's
much
not-
like
it's not trying to sell you
CGI
something.
trickery.
Yeah.
No, there really wasn't, except for cropping out some stuff.
Yeah.
There
Awesome stuff,
there are
leaving
two
some-
scenes I noticed that were altered.
But in good ways, not like this characters are gonna die. And we
Yeah,
don't
it
want
wasn't
to,
nearly
like,
as
put
bad
them
as the
in,
Infinity War trailer.
Yeah, I
It's
was
like,
impressed
More
how
nearly as bad as we were
accurate it
hyping it
was.
up to be.
Yeah.
Like
Mhm.
I remember we were thinking maybe they like photoshopped out Tony,
Tony,
or Cap in
yeah.
the middle of the line, or that scene of like Tony and Cap, do you trust me, was like past Cap and our Cap was dead, but no,
Hey, we're just getting into the.
we already marked it. It's over.
Okay.
Haley, give him 10 seconds.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it
that's
was,
well, I mean, we were kind of literally just talking to them to say like this movie isn't for you if you haven't.
It's over. Leave.
Yeah.
Leave.
Yeah. Okay. We're gonna talk spoilers now. So
All right,
please
now
please.
spoilers.
Please don't
We're
listen
gonna
to
talk
this.
shop
It
now.
literally says spoilers in the title.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. Please don't listen to this if you haven't seen the movie.
So spoilers included.
It
What
was
did we
good.
think of the movie?
It was
Hulk
really good.
All right,
Gaps.
so from the
Oh man, I don't.
from the
I knew you'd focus on that.
get-go, all my expectations were thrown out the window.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, seriously,
Like,
actually.
any sort of
This was the-
predictions that I had, any sort of theories, well, except for one major one, were basically gone. But the one major theory that I'm very surprised and very happy that it turned out well was the time travel one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
That was insane.
everybody kind of had. I
Very
mean, everybody was kind of aware it was probably going to involve time travel. I
I've
thi-
braced myself.
I had
for
no
it.
idea.
Mhm.
Oh,
The time
okay,
travel was
cool,
the
X.
comedy of the movie. That was great though. Like it was
Look,
to get the Infinity Stones, but it was all a joke. That was all it was.
I want to say
It's
this
so
right out the
great.
gate. Everybody knows I hate time travel. The reason this movie works for me is because they throw out all the rules of preconceived notions of time travel in other forms of media.
They even have that whole scene where they literally trashed the old rules.
Yeah.
Like,
So how can
it's not
I,
Back to the Future. What are you talking about?
how can I,
You're
as
crazy.
someone who hates the concept of time travel, say it does or doesn't make sense based on blank? If like time travel doesn't exist in the real world, the only frame of reference I have to compare it to is other movies or whatever.
Yeah.
And if those are BS, then there's nothing I can really criticize. They effectively took the power away. They do their own thing, which I respect. Does it make sense fully? Mostly. Old Cap is the one sticking point.
Yeah. I would say that the time travel here makes the most sense out of any other movie
yeah.
I've ever seen tackle time travel.
Mhm.
I said this before outside of I'll fight you on it, X. I really will.
I will. We will have a time travel fight. I wanna do that.
I said it before outside
Yes,
of
looking forward to this.
the podcast, but I feel like this, if time travel were to actually become achievable and it were to actually be like a real thing, this is exactly how it would be. I feel like
Yeah,
it seems the most realistic way of time travel happening.
it is fictionalized, but it's
realistic-
grounded in like real theories.
Yeah, it's grounded in real theory and it makes a lot of sense. The only thing, like Messa mentioned, that doesn't really make sense with the rules of the time travel they establish is the Captain America scene. That's the only one where I'm like, I can't
But-
quite wrap my head around it. It sort of makes sense, but then I'm like, no, but then how would that be this kind of thing? So
But it is cinematic and cool though.
it
I
is
will,
cool.
I
And
will
it
say
does
it
make
doesn't
for a
make
very
any
good
sense,
moment.
but I did like that scene nonetheless, even though I just
It was a
you know.
great scene.
Yeah, I was like, oh, okay, cool.
See, I don't
was
know.
very
It's
heartfelt.
like this
Mhm.
movie is not driven too much by logic necessarily, but is definitely what everyone's going to this movie for is the heart. This movie does a really great job. It makes so many callbacks, so many references, ties up so many loose ends that from previous movies. It does its job incredibly well, and from the
It's so
get-go, you
satisfying.
don't know what will happen.
Mhm.
Like those first couple minutes of the movie, they're like, "All right, let's go get Thanos."
Yeah, it's
No.
interesting. The first couple of
Love it.
minutes of the movie is what you think the whole movie is going to be. Like they
Yeah, you
go and
think,
fight
like-
Thanos, and then they freaking beat him in the first
Yeah.
10 minutes.
And there's nothing. It's just hollow.
I-
And it leaves you thinking like, oh, geez, well, what the heck is the rest of the movie?
It's like, oh crap.
Yeah, because I walked into this movie thinking like the first hour is gonna be them prepping.
Yeah,
Like,
that's
they're
what I
they're gonna
thought.
Get everyone together, and then they're gonna go get Thanos, and that was it. But no, they did that within the first 10 minutes. Freaking Thanos gets decapitated.
I thought
love it.
thought he was gonna beat them when the first time they showed up.
Yeah.
Like I was expecting them to go like pretty early, but then they get beat, and then they're like, "Hey, let's go back in time." Not
Yeah, I thought they were gonna get their butts handed
he's
to
like,
them, and
"I
someone
destroyed the
was gonna
stones,"
die.
and then they figure they have to go
It was a
back now.
complete, flip of how everyone had predicted it would go.
But
Yeah.
did Thanos just not care about his well-being after his goal?
No.
So he
No,
was like,
he-
"Ah,
No,
yeah,
he-
that was
done.
his
he
whole
cares
reason
more
for
about
living
his
was
destiny.
accomplished. Yeah,
Oh, okay. Because it seemed
Like-
kind of weird of him just
I
like,
am
oh, no defenses, no
inevitable.
nothing. He just,
No, he didn't care.
He got what he wanted. He became a farmer for a good for a little
Yeah,
bit.
so
yeah.
there-
it's
there-
just-
there's-
making the soup.
there was two reasons as well. Like there was the fact that yes, he at that point he had completed his goal, so the putting up a fight really didn't matter. And also he was like basically already on the brink of death after destroying the stones. He was really weak. Like if you notice, his hand is shaking like uncontrollably as he's picking the fruit, and he's limping up the stairs to get into his hut. Like he's barely hanging on. He's really
yeah, he was
weak.
pretty toasted.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So he really couldn't fight back even if he wanted to. But I mean, like if you look in that scene where they go to the past and past Thanos is watching himself get executed, even he doesn't care. He's like, "That's destiny right there. Destiny's fulfilled."
He's like, yeah.
Yeah, he's like,
I said that. That's dope.
yeah, he smiles. He smiles at that line, and he's just like, "Yep, that's destiny fulfilled right there." He's happy to see himself get executed. He's like, I did what I needed to
Such
do.
a good villain.
What a guy.
Oh my gosh.
But you know,
Yeah, with that
everything with
said,
Thanos, everything within the movie, it all pales in comparison to the true villain of the movie.
Listen, Noob Slayer 69. Keep talking and I'm gonna find you in your
Noob Master
You're on
69.
top. I shove them up your butt.
That's gonna the dabbing and the
Thor
Fortnite
is the
was
most
that's
tragic
gonna
hero.
make it age like milk.
Here's the thing. So Thor is an interesting part of the movie, and I think he's probably going for me. I understand this one the most out of anything to criticize about the film. I think the handling of Thor in this film might be the big thing that's going to be really divisive for
Which people are pissed off about.
And
Yeah.
it already
Yeah.
is. Yeah, a lot
And-
of people
Okay,
aren't
okay.
happy.
It is of the few like pissed off like rants that I've seen. This is the one I understand completely. I get it. For me, it didn't bother me like literally at all. I loved it. I thought it was
wasn't
great.
bothered either.
Actually, I didn't love it. I didn't think it was great. I would have preferred to see better Thor during the film, but it just didn't bother me. I got what they were doing. It was a funny gag, and it made sense for the character. So at the end of the day, didn't care. You know.
What
But
was it that
Someone
people
needed an existential crisis, and I think the
What-
one who would have got it the
What do
most.
people not like about the Thor thing though? Like
The
what is
fact
it?
that
People
the
don't
fact
like
that
that
he got
cool
fat.
Thor. Cool Thor has been reduced to fat, hobo, drunk Fortnite playing bum Thor.
And not
Oh.
only that, but like he is that for the entirety of the movie, even in the final battle, where he's still just fat, drunk Thor.
Yeah.
Well, yeah,
People
he can't really like
Exactly.
The
But
bumbling
that
idiot who has to be
fast.
enticed to the movie, enticed to the team for beer. He trash talks Fortnite players. Like,
Fortnite in
But here's
2022
the thing.
it's not
players.
that it's not funny. It's people don't like it because it feels out of place in the movie. Like if this was in
Well-
Ragnarok, maybe it would be fine. But
Well,
it's
nothing's out of
Endgame.
place in this
It's
movie.
not-
There's
no,
time
I-
travel.
I think it's more of a personal thing. Like people
Yeah.
got so attached to the bad ace Thor.
What's the
Infinity
bad
War.
ace Thor?
You know what it is.
The one that we saw from
I don't
Infinity War, the one that came down to
Really cool
to
Thor.
Wakanda.
Thor was
and
very
then
cool
was
in the
like,
last movie.
Bring me
Okay.
Thanos, like that.
Bring
part,
me
that's
Thanos.
what
Oh,
I love
Yeah.
with.
I did,
And then
And if Thor had been the same Thor, then Captain getting the hammer would not have felt as satisfying.
well, that's the thing. It's like that Thor wouldn't have fit in this movie. Like
Yeah.
he's there, he's in the movie for like the first 10 minutes. It
Mhm.
makes sense for Thor to be super cool and stuff in the first 10 minutes when he still thinks he has a chance to save everyone
Yeah.
and go beat Thanos and stuff.
Right.
But once he cuts off his head and then
There's
5
no
years
hope.
goes
Yeah.
by, it's like, what's the point? There's
Yeah,
nothing
now
he can do.
he missed his
He's
chance.
failed. Yeah.
And so
And
that's
it's
why that's why I don't think it's out of place. It makes
Yeah.
complete sense for Thor to be like
Yeah, it's a
it's
logical
a
step
really-
for his character.
the only the reason people don't like it is it's really simple. It's they like Thor as a character. They like seeing Thor do very cool things, and to see their favorite character reduced to kind of a joke the entire thing is upsetting, especially for the final the final film in their
And
favorite
I feel
franchise.
that because I loved Thor in the last 2 movies. I loved Thor in Ragnarok and in Infinity War. So seeing him like this, yeah, it was kind of like heartbreaking in a way. But
Yeah.
that's the point. It's like it's supposed to be heartbreaking. You're supposed
Yeah.
to see all these heroes broken down to
Yeah, but thankfully Thor
complete
isn't
human form.
Thor isn't my favorite character, so I'm able to kind of look at it from this makes sense for the character and it works in the film kind of thing. But if he was my favorite character, then I too would be kind of disappointed that for the very final battle of his this whole series, he was just a kind of a bumbling idiot the whole time.
At least he gets
that's
it
kind
together.
of
And,
lame.
like, has a cool like Viking look.
Yeah,
and,
no.
very, like Brady.
I did
Giving
like
him
how they were
credit.
able to make that. Yeah, they kind of made him like a really like badass like god dwarf looking thing. It was really
dual
cool.
wielding Stormbreaker Mjolnir.
Yeah. It was very. It was very. It felt very like Nordic
Yeah,
god.
that
to me.
was hype. That was
Oh,
super hype. He definitely looked more like a classic depiction of a Norse god.
Yeah, that's what I was
Which is
thinking.
what I really
like,
appreciated.
That was
I
satisfying.
feel like if Thor as like the god legend was real, that would be more in line with how he would actually be depicted
Mhm.
than the Thor from Infinity War.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, the big beard and everything that worked in the very
Mhm.
end.
And
I don't.
His beard was so round. It was like a big cotton ball.
I just
Yeah,
felt like a
it's
lot of
proper
it
neck
was
beard.
a lot of it was very like sort of parallel, I guess, to Odin, or like sort of a reference to him because of the way that when he goes to back to Asgard and he tries to give Rocket an excuse for why he's running off. He like talks about like the Asgardian wine or whatever he's got that he wants to go and drink. I felt that was very like similar to like Odin in a way.
Was
So-
Odin the drunk?
No, I mean it's just more like figure wise.
Okay, fair enough. I get you.
I mean, I think there are definitely some comparisons to Odin to be made, because at the end of the movie, he's also once he passes on the kingship or the rulership to Valkyrie, he's staring out past like this green field into the ocean, very similarly to Odin.
Yeah.
He also passed on his role to Thor,
Handy.
and it helps that he also now looks a lot more like Odin did as well. So I think that was
Which
an
makes you
intentional.
think, man, what kind of stuff did Odin go through?
Messed up.
Well, not nearly as bad as Thor.
He stole
Kids
it,
rebelling.
baby.
Yeah. A lot of war.
Odin was also a failure, though. Like,
Yeah.
He was.
it is very parallel. So,
Thank
I
you,
think
Bart.
the other thing with
Super
Thor
hype for the Asgardians of the Galaxy volume.
Yeah!
As Guardians of the Galaxy.
I'm so glad they actually said it.
Yeah.
dude, Thor is
It's
such a
gonna be such
badass
hype
guardian.
movie.
No, bad
Oh, you
ace. No.
Bad
He's
Ace.
a badass guardian.
Haley.
Oh, Haley, it's Bad Ace.
Bad Ace guardian. Bad.
What is Ace
Bad
reference?
Ace.
It's censoring.
It's not a reference to anything X. They're trying to avoid saying the word.
yeah,
Ah.
just a
There's
replacement.
Oh, okay,
Anyway.
I see.
Bad as
So
Guardian.
5 years pass. The Avengers have failed. It gets real. It gets super sad and depressing.
Dude.
It's like
That opening scene, the opening scene alone was just as soon as you see the bow and arrow pop up, you're
Oh
like,
my
"Oh,
God."
you're going here.
That was
Oh,
good,
yeah.
dude.
You're
And
going here."
It's great too because literally everybody knows what's going
Oh,
to
yeah.
happen to them. So like,
Yeah,
the,
they
Oh,
could
yeah.
really
the
get
second
It's so horrible.
Oh,
Really?
by the way, guys. So like, I've seen the film twice now. The first theater viewing, it was in a really small auditorium with a lot of people who obviously didn't care about the MCU, which makes sense because I bought that ticket last minute. So
Yeah.
everybody in that theater was also people who bought the ticket last minute.
But
So they
the
weren't that
second-
investment. My second
man.
viewing though, it was a giant auditorium, IMAX, completely packed with everybody dressed in Marvel, like
That is
Oh.
like
stuff.
dang.
I saw so many like jumpsuits and like costumes and stuff. It was great. But the second that Hawkeye scene like fades in, the second you see Hawkeye with his daughter, everybody on it's just like, oh no! Everyone knew it was about to
I was-
happen.
You
I
know
was
what's
so
coming.
excited to like cheer during the Marvel logo in the beginning because I knew it was coming,
And you
but the
couldn't.
way they introduced it, you just couldn't.
too
You couldn't
sad.
even cheer when the
Yep.
logo came up.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because
Like
that
it-
was the thing that threw me off as well. Because I didn't realize that the movie had started because it was so sudden, and I just did, and it didn't occur to
Mhm.
me what point,
It was good.
what time that was until the thing happened. Because like you said, Vardy, it was
The
super obvious
snapping
what was going on. I had no idea
Yeah.
when
The
this
moment
was.
his kids started being cute, I was like, yeah, they're gonna die.
They're all gonna die.
You want mayo or mustard?
yeah,
Ketchup.
the second gas mayo or mustard, I was like,
Dust.
"No man."
They're
Hmm.
dead.
X, I would say like a lot of people figured it out because one, Hawkeye wasn't in the last movie, but also
Yeah.
two, because he's featured heavily in the trailers and he's very clearly he looks like he's very pained and has gone through some stuff,
Mhm.
which kind of gives the implication that he had to have lost his family or something. He lost
Punished
someone.
Venom Clinton.
But then we open the film with a shot of Hawkeye as he was in Age of Ultron, not
Yeah.
how he was in the trailer.
This
So
was Hawkeye's best movie, by the way, in terms of just
Oh, yeah.
focus, screen time, cool moments. They like finally gave him a lot of good stuff.
Dude, it was just about everybody's best moments in this movie.
True,
Like
fair.
that was one of my complaints about Infinity War was that for some of the heroes we didn't get too much development or time with them, like Captain America and Black Widow.
Yeah.
No.
Mhm.
But in this movie, everybody got a moment.
Flip the
Everybody got a
script.
focus,
Oh, yeah.
especially Cap. And I'm really happy to see how that went.
I know this is an Iron Man movie, but dang, did Cap get close to stealing like the narrative?
You had
from
some of the
him.
best payoff.
This was definitely Cap's movie when it comes to like what he did, but it was an Iron Man. narrative.
I would say this is equally both of them.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
felt like
it's
they both
definitely
had a
equal.
lot of screen time.
Yeah, I think this is a great send off for both of them.
Oh
yeah,
yeah,
with the way the movie ended, it's definitely still an Iron Man movie.
Yeah.
but yeah, I mean he had a funeral.
Well, I would say
Everybody there. Can we talk about how expensive that last shot was at
Oh,
the
yeah.
funeral?
Yeah,
When
just
it was
to
panned
get everybody there, yeah.
there. I can't even imagine how long or like the planning it would take just to get
Well,
that one shot.
Whatever it was, they made their money back already.
and
Oh,
it's,
yeah. Oh,
What a budget meeting plans, whatever it takes.
I was honestly
Probably.
I was honestly surprised at their drive to get literally everyone back. I was not expecting to see Natalie Portman in this movie. I
yeah.
thought she was
Right.
done. I did.
Yeah.
I was blown away when she was there, and I was like, did they CGI her or something, or is that an
No,
extra
yeah.
or something?
Yeah, I
They
wondered
did just
if
like
that
a
was, like,
close-up shot of
footage.
her, right?
Gwyneth
Yeah.
Paltrow, Robert
New-
Redford.
new footage.
And then at the end of the film, she's in the credits. I'm like, wow, they actually got her back. That's
Yeah.
crazy.
She was at the premiere too.
It was.
That's
Not in a very big
It was really good,
capacity,
like,
but she was there.
We're in the final movie. The narrative only allows for so many people, but the fact that they had cameos and like references to honor the past, that's what's really appreciated.
Jarvis.
Okay, yeah, you talk about this one.
So,
Give context.
yeah, Tyler accidentally went on the Shield Reddit before the movie, and he accidentally got spoiled that there was going to be a character from a TV show in the movie make a cameo.
That
but
it wasn't
wouldn't be
Shield.
from Shield.
So I was pissed off for
Yeah.
like 2 days.
So we're like, is it going to be one of the Defenders, like turning to dust? Like, what could it be? And I'm like, well, if it's a time travel movie, they might have a cameo for Agent Carter, and the only one from Agent Carter that would make sense is Jarvis, because it would make sense for like, here's the real life Jarvis for
Wow,
like.
so you called it.
I called it.
Yep.
So when he popped out of the car, I literally looked over to Tyler and I was like, I totally
Yeah,
know.
she jumped out of her seat, and I was like, all right, fair. Which, I can't be mad at it. It was a fair reference. It was very tasty.
I really like that scene too, because even if you didn't watch Agent Carter,
You get it.
there's a
Yeah,
lot of
yeah.
people in the audience who don't know
Mm-hmm.
that Jarvis the Butler was the inspiration for Jarvis the AI. So seeing that was a really cool moment for a lot of people. I'm
Yeah.
sure
It was
even if
a
they didn't see
full
them.
circle.
Yeah.
Way back to Iron
It was
Man
a
1.
very well done little bow on an already fantastic scene,
Mhm.
and it does mark the first ever movie, TV.
I had
reference in that
zero
manner.
idea about
Automatically
Agent
making
Carter,
the best
but I
TV.
thought it was a good touch. Like, I was like, oh, that's cool. Like,
Yeah,
I
I'm
thought
one
People
of the
doing
people that
that.
thought, oh, cool, it's Jarvis. The
I
real
had no
Jarvis.
idea that was the guy. I just thought,
Yep.
isn't that the Vision guy?
Nope.
No,
No,
it's not even
it's
the
actually-
Is that not?
No, it's a different actor.
It's not.
Yeah.
It's not the same
Oh.
actor.
which is
So-
super cool.
That's what's he sounded like him.
He
So I was
sounded
oh,
like him.
that's
But
the
that's
guy?
because Jarvis the AI, Vision's Jarvis the AI, and Jarvis the AI was based off of Tony Stark's memory of Jarvis the Butler. So they're
Yeah.
similar, but they're different people.
Oh, okay. They're played by different people, but
Yeah,
they have the
they
same
are
voice?
played by different people.
Even the voice
No.
in the Iron Man 1, Iron Man 2, Iron Man whatever is a different person than the person who actually plays Jarvis
Yeah.
in the TV series.
Well, because it's not like Tony Stark was able to extract Jarvis's voice and apply that to his AI. He just
The
based
reason
the
you think
AI
they
off of
sound
Jarvis.
similar is because they're similar, like
Jarvis.
vocal archetypes, with like the British
Jarvis.
butler kind of.
Yeah, they
British
both have the
butler.
British butler
Jarvis
accent.
is also the most badass character in Agent Carter.
oh
besides,
my
of course,
gosh.
Agent Carter. He's amazing.
Well, those I have never watched it though, so those.
Nor
It's
have I.
all right.
he's a great getaway driver. I'll just leave it there.
Point being, they use the time travel scenes to not only make a lot of really good homages to Marvel movies, but Marvel TV as well. Loki and Jane Foster,
Mhm.
Alexander Pierce, Crossbones, everybody. It was really, really good.
The elevator scene. Oh my.
Oh, that was hilarious.
That was hilarious.
I like that. I thought that was funny. I was like, I watched the movie. I know what he did
I was
there.
totally
That
expecting him to
elevator
fight.
scene, that elevator scene is how Ryan Johnson. Please take notes. That's how you subvert expectations. That was so good.
We were
And
expecting a fight, but we got an even better
everybody in
outcome.
that theater was thinking he's about to say the line. He's about to say the. Anybody want to get off? Or before we begin, anybody want to get off or something like that? No.
It was such a perfect setup.
He
Mhm.
leans over and he's like, "Hail Hydra!" And everyone was like,
And
"Oh!"
It works, dude. My theater
He
went
walks out with
nuts.
the scepter.
He has like the
Everyone
smirk. Oh, so good.
It was so good, and they framed it exactly like they did in
Oh,
Winter
yeah.
Soldier.
Dude, then he goes and fights himself. Like I could do this all day. Yeah,
Yeah, I know.
I know.
That's America's ace.
Ace. That's America's bad ace.
Oh,
So good.
Bucky is alive.
If
What?
anyone in
I
the
thought he was gonna
audience
kill him, but
is like, "Why are you guys going out of your way to censor yourself?" Blame LJ.
yeah.
All right. This is a family-friendly podcast.
Family-friendly podcast.
Well,
Yes,
I meant
swear.
it seriously.
Even though,
Just
like,
like
if you're
all the
watching
Marvel
the great irony is if you're watching this podcast and you saw the movie with the language that was
This
in
is
the
more
movie, but you
filtered
see it
than
here,
Endgame.
like, it's more filtered than Endgame.
Yeah, right.
Captain America was like swearing.
TTV's
Well,
more
uh,
filtered than a
Captain
Marvel.
America swears as the title drops. Like
Yeah. Yes,
Oh,
Captain.
Well,
Let's
it just
get
goes to
that
show you the
son of a
difference
witch.
between Whedon Captain America and like Russo Captain America.
Accurate.
Yep.
So they do the whole
Language.
time travel thing, and there's a lot of good stuff in the time travel sequence, but there is like some weird elements too, like Nebula. And
Mhm.
imagine how things could have been different if they had just sent someone else besides Nebula. Like we talked about this off podcast, they kind of just got the short end of the stick with who was left. But I just like to imagine if they sent Nebula with Thor instead and sent Rocket with Rhodey, we wouldn't have had a third act.
Yeah.
It was just because they
Yeah.
got unlucky.
It didn't make sense for like Thor to like. I guess I didn't feel like Thor was good place where he was because he
His
was just so
plan was
nervous
supposed
and
to
everything.
go talk
He was
to,
supposed to be.
well,
used
Yeah, so that was
Yeah.
supposed to be the plan. Yeah, but it just. I mean,
Make
it's.
it
I
Rocket.
think it'd just be
I
better
mean,
to just bring someone else and they
I
just
think with
sneak.
like the quantum GPS, they just basically said you have to go to somewhere that you've been before.
yeah,
More or
somewhere
less.
that you're familiar with.
Yeah,
it makes sense assuming that the plan is followed. It's just they didn't like Thor was just kind of he screwed the pooch there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Message's right. Like it doesn't really make a lot of sense.
I mean, it's time travel. Nothing makes sense with time.
Well, it doesn't make a lot of sense to have sent
Yeah.
Natasha and Clint
Yeah.
together to the Soul Stone. So
It was only because we as an audience know they have the most potential for interesting interplay.
right. That's where you kind of think meta.
also
It's like you can't really
They
help
had
but
no
think
idea
meta.
what they were walking into for the Soul Stone. They didn't know
That's
that
so-
them going together meant that one of them would have to die.
They didn't know that. Yeah, and
Yeah.
the annoying thing is that Nebula does know that, and she obviously didn't tell anyone.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was. I still think that's strange. Although Tony could have mentioned it. I mean, Tony would have been slightly aware because he was there for when they're binding
It's true.
Thanos on Titan, and she explains to Quill about how he went to Vormir with Gamora, and then she didn't come back. Blah blah
Yeah.
blah. That's what enrages
Chili
Quill and
Con,
screws them over in that part of Infinity War.
Chilikon says in the patron chat, does Nebula actually know that? None of us have rewatched Infinity War recently. The verdict's still out. We had a mini conversation.
I think
yeah.
she has some idea.
Yeah,
I don't think she
I
fully
did.
knows, but
she figures it
I-
out logically that Gamora was
I did watch Infinity War, and like she doesn't know the specifics of how Gamora died, and I doubt that she knows that you literally have to kill someone to get
Yeah,
the stone.
She literally
But-
goes. Thanos goes to place with Gamora. Thanos leaves place with Soul Stone.
with
no
Stone
Gamora.
and no Gamora. Yeah, so you can kind of put two and two together. It's weird that she doesn't mention this to.
She could have said something about how, like,
Wait a minute.
last time someone got the Soul Stone, my sister died.
Wait, no. She does say
I
this.
lost an eye. What?
She
No,
does?
she does mention this. She says this during the meeting, and Ant-Man literally follows it with "not it."
Oh, yeah!
Yeah.
So what, they just
that's
don't,
right.
there's idiots then?
Oh, yeah. No, they probably just got the
No, I guess
They probably
Nat,
just said
Nat
they
and
wanted to
Clint
go
just,
together, and they
yeah,
just
Nat and Clint just
Yeah.
offered to
Clint
do it.
volunteered, yeah.
Yeah,
I
they volunteered.
think they also hoped in a way that they wouldn't have to go through it with it because you see them sitting
Yeah,
around and like trying to talk
Just
him into
waiting.
giving the stone.
Yeah,
That was such a great scene.
that was a good scene. That was some
Dude, yeah.
I didn't even know at this point. I went in knowing that one of those two was gonna die, but
Somehow
not sure
she
which
reasoned that
one.
out too.
And then so we got to the scene, and I'm like, "Who's gonna die? Who's gonna die?" I think it's gonna be Black Widow. Oh no, the slow motion's got to be Hawkeye. Oh no, it's gonna be Black Widow.
When
We didn't say that.
when
You
they
reasoned
agree
out
about
that
it, I
It made
figured.
more sense for it to be Black Widow.
It does make more sense because of Hawkeye's family.
Yeah.
They had that all
Hawkeye
set
had
up.
something to go back to. Black
But-
Widow's story
It would have
was-
been cutting him off
Yeah.
too short in the movie, I think. Overall, since he
Yeah.
hasn't been represented in the Avengers films that much, I didn't think they would cut him off that quickly. Just
Yeah, it makes
Over
sense
that.
for the
I watched
emotional.
Iron Man 2 yesterday, where she first comes
Yeah.
out. I like whimpered at the first scene that she
Yeah.
like steps into frame. I'm like,
Good times.
"Oh, I'm gonna miss you
Better
and
times.
your sexiness.
oh
we got a
my
movie.
gosh.
We got a movie coming out soon.
Yes,
She-
the amazing prequel movie.
I think
We
she
kind of
had
already
her, like-
figured it was going to be a prequel.
She had her best like Black Widow outfit in this movie than she's had in any other
Yup.
movie. It was awesome.
The
It was-
hairstyle really worked too.
dude, yeah, and like
Yeah.
the braid with
Yeah,
like the
braid
blonde
was
streak.
great.
Dude, she looked amazing. This is the best look she's had. I loved it.
Oh yeah.
Is her main hair color red then? Like
Yes, her
Yeah.
natural hair color is red.
So she was just like, I want it white because
Well, no,
that
she
was
did. She,
depressing.
yeah,
She's not.
she dyed it blonde because they were on the run from Civil War because they were
Oh
they were fugitives.
yeah. Oh, that makes sense actually. Okay. That's
Yeah.
cool.
Yep.
Thanks for reminding. I
That's why
did see
Cap
Civil
grew the
War.
beard and looked all nasty and stuff.
Yeah,
Like,
I remember that.
At the same time,
I mean,
like
on the
weird.
one hand, I'm very happy that that Hawkeye lived. On the other hand, as to quote a friend of ours, Solaris Magnus, or a friend of mine, Hawkeye 2-time back-to-back. I was supposed to die, but someone else did who didn't even get a funeral champion.
Yikes.
I didn't see that coming.
I do feel like
Didn't
Black
see
Widow
that
got,
coming.
got short end of a stick because it feels like there's some cool backstory stuff for her, but she never got her own movie or anything.
She's about to.
Oh,
she's
going to.
getting one. Yeah.
She is.
Finally
But
gets
she's
her
dead
own movie,
now.
dies.
It's a prequel.
They're making.
Oh,
prequel.
okay.
Yeah,
I guess.
Like literally what you were
I
just saying, they're
guess.
making for her.
Oh, okay.
On the one hand, we already all kind of assumed it was going to be a prequel because it was going to be in her spy days. On the other hand, I just kind of feel like it's I wouldn't say disrespectful, but it's just kind of awkward to release it finally after people have been wanting a movie for her for over a decade, the
After
year
they
after
killed
she
her.
dies.
Yeah.
It's like
I agree.
Isn't
It's a weird
Johansson
timing.
starring?
Prequel as a bittersweet send off.
I would imagine so.
it's like Solo.
Yeah, but
They
I
would,
have
they
no
would not do
family.
that to they would not. They would not do that to Scarlet, man.
Solo then. huh?
If I was Scarlett Johansson, I would be so mad if they finally gave me a solo film and I wasn't the one starring in it.
yeah, fair.
That would be BS.
Depends on how-
They
depends
wouldn't.
on
But she'd
how
be like
young they're
so
going.
young that
It'll be her.
you wouldn't have Scarlet.
It'll definitely be her. But
Yeah.
Do some
Scarlett
de-aging.
Johansson
No,
looks
kidding.
young as heck, though. She
When
has
she
like,
walks into the screen
How-
in that
how
movie,
old is
it's gonna be
Scarlett now?
Such a big cheer. It's gonna be
Let's
She's
see.
probably in her 30s.
yeah, probably.
Probably.
I guess
Let's see.
maybe late 20s at most. Oh yeah, 34. She's looking great for
She's
30.
only 34.
Dang.
6 years. 6
She
more
looks
years.
She was
She's
still in
40.
her 20s. That means she was practically a baby in Iron Man 1.
It's true, but dude, she looks amazing for 34. She hasn't aged. Well, okay, she does look really really young in Iron Man 2, but literally every other movie she's looked the same.
Yeah, pretty much.
But yeah, so now they can absolutely still cast her and make it work. I'll
100%.
believe it.
Just use that
She
de-aging
can play
technology.
a younger
Yeah, good.
actress.
Why did,
so I really glad that Hawkeye lived? What X?
Before we move on to something else, one thing, I'm not 100%. Okay, I watched this movie today,
Go
but
on.
still, my head is kind of all over the place. So I'm not 100% sure whether or not this is correct. But they came. Okay. Clint came back, right?
Yes.
And he
Mhm.
talked about like a mysterious figure, like a Red Skull and everything.
Yep.
I was very much expecting Captain America to react to that and
Me
just be
too.
like,
Yeah.
And
And then he just
considering we
didn't.
know that he goes back later and meets Red Skull, I know it wouldn't have worked narratively with the movie, but it would have been cool to see that reunion.
Yeah, I was really expecting there was to be some like coming from Infinity War. I weirdly was expecting that there was going to be some sort of not direct interaction, but something with just Steve Rogers and just be like, "Oh, Red Skull's." He's
It
Would,
would've-
would
That
any
would've
of
been a good
them
post-credit.
recognized him though to tell Cap about it?
no, but if how many
Well-
people out there are a Red Skull looking guy? You
Yeah,
know?
but would Cap
the-
really
the-
believe that though? If he was, would he make that
The
connection?
the implication. Well, I would think he would because Cap did see him get beamed up after touching the stone. So,
Fair enough.
but
He got
the implication is that Hawkeye explained it to them off screen. Because he brings up the red guy again when they're talking about bringing Nat back, and he's like, "Well, why don't you go ask the red guy?" As though he's already mentioned him before. So I think they did have a conversation about it off screen.
Yeah.
I see.
And it's
Also,
probably just one of those unfortunate things where they had more important things to worry about.
And because
Yeah.
the Infinity Stones aren't going to be a part of the franchise, they're never going to run into Reds. Well, maybe. Never mind. Because if the Infinity Stones are
They're not.
No, no.
They're not going to do the stones again.
Yeah,
no.
they're destroyed.
Yeah, that's over.
not destroyed, they return to the timeline.
No,
Right.
yeah, they're back where they were, but they're not going to go back.
And
there.
they're present. The stones are destroyed.
Also, on the subject of Hawkeye, Clint, whatever you might call him, the biggest surprise for me, except for Hulk dabbing, the biggest surprise to me in the entire movie was just like, oh, this character looks really cool. It's like a ninja and stuff, jumping around,
Nope.
got a sword and everything. Who is
Lasted
this
all of
guy?
5 minutes.
This must be a brand new character. I've never thought there was something like this inside of Marvel. The sword looks really neat, even though it doesn't much make sense. And it's just Clint. I was like, what? What? What is
And then
that?
he has
And then
that
everybody-
that one Japanese line that he says.
Why is he
Into
big on
his-
swords now? Like,
Well,
what's the
he-
deal with that?
There's two schools of thought. The first
Okay.
is that he adopted the Ronin identity because Clint Barton had a plea deal with the government to not be Hawkeye anymore in exchange for, freedom from prison. They mentioned that. And he had to adopt this secret identity to not be put in prison while he just murders people. The other theory is that he's being an edgelord.
Yeah, it's just like, I need to escape.
Family's dead. so
I
he
don't want to
becomes-
go to prison, so
Dude,
let's just kill
he
people with a
He
katana.
becomes Samurai Punisher. That's all it is.
No, it
My
becomes
family's
Ronin
dead,
from
so I'm gonna kill
Ninjago.
He
everyone.
becomes Arrow from Arrow
Ronin
season
from
1.
Ninjago does not kill people.
I don't know. I just heard the name Ronin. I
Ronin
have
from
absolutely
Ninjago does not
nothing.
do anything.
That
I
Thanos
don't know
took
anything
half of
about
all
Ronin
life.
in Ninjago, other than his
He's
name.
Ronin
Steals
from
stuff.
Ninjago doesn't do anything.
Steals lives.
He doesn't steal lives. He doesn't kill people. He just steals scrolls whenever he feels like
Steal
it.
scrolls.
And barters with teenage
Is he
ninjas.
I'm
is he
gonna steal the
Chad
scroll
Ninjago?
of your life.
Yes,
All right.
I like. I liked the Ronin stuff in the movie. I just feel like number one, it lasted too short. They bothered making like this accurate costume for him, but he was just back to using the bow and arrow like
Yeah.
immediately.
He
And-
used the sword one other
And
time.
secondarily, it felt like they were trying to do kind of like what the Marvel Netflix shows do with the dark and gritty kind of atmosphere, but the choreography just wasn't there. And by it wasn't there, I mean it literally wasn't there. 90% of it was off screen, and the 10% that was sucked.
mean-
So the scene really like held up by its own merits of the rain, the emotional aspect, whatever. But I couldn't help but think while I was watching it, if this was on Netflix, there'd be a Hawkeye hallway fight, and we'd be raving about how good it is. But
All
feel
right,
like
all right.
That would have been really weird.
Out of place? Yeah.
Endgame
like,
extended
totally-
cut just for you, bro.
Everybody gets like the nice like meetup reunion like
Mhm.
3-minute scene, and then Hawkeye gets like a 5-minute, 8-minute like battle through the hallway. Like what?
probably like a minute and a half. Just something that doesn't involve him like just trading sword strikes
Iron
with this
Fist
dude
jumps through the door
awkwardly.
one time. We're like, wait, who's that?
Yeah, okay. I just realized though, look, Rhodey, he finds the Mexican gang members that Ronin cut up or whatever, and he's like, "Oh, this is like." He talks about how gruesome it was, like how brutal of Clint it was, and then he goes and he fights the Japanese guy, and then he does like next to nothing. I mean, I guess he stabs him. It has a kind of like cool camera where it lowers, but it doesn't show anything
him in the
still.
stomach twice.
Yeah, I mean, like he
slices his throat.
he like
and then
dunks on
stabs him.
Yeah.
the only reason
I mean,
you're
like it
doing
doesn't
that
show
stuff
it.
is
It
that
does.
It's really brutal.
No, but it
Only
doesn't
reason
show
it's
it.
on
That's
for the
all. It
viewers
doesn't
is
show
they
it. That's
literally
all.
stabs him.
It
as
doesn't
he's
show
begging
it.
for
That's
his life.
all.
I'll give you
Really?
anything. I'll give you anything.
At least
give
you
me
don't
the-
emo.
Ronan
but
was
yeah.
cool, I guess. I honestly kind of forgot.
I like the outfit. It was
part,
cool.
But,
The one scene.
Yeah. can we talk about Professor Hulk?
Okay.
That was
Stabbing?
funny.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
That was awesome.
It was freaking hilarious.
My friends and I
but-
were dying the whole movie.
There's something like very uncanny valley about how they did the CG in some scenes. Some things was perfect. I mean, the later half of the movie, I had very few complaints. But in the first half, when he was like showing up wearing glasses in clothes, I think the problem I was having was hearing Mark Ruffalo's voice coming from this CGI
Yeah,
monster.
it was
Right.
kind of it was kind of weird at
It was
first.
jarring, but
He kind of
it
had like this
worked
really
because I
sheepish
think it was
voice
supposed to be
when he
jarring,
first
so-
starts talking.
It was.
yeah.
It definitely gets a lot better when he stops wearing the glasses.
Mm-hmm.
But
What do you think when he dabbed Messa? Did you like that?
I audibly groaned, but also chuckled at the same time. It was very funny.
Oh.
I love Hulk's character.
date
arc.
this
It-
movie.
it
All those
kinda-
movies for him to dab.
Yeah, in
I love
2022
that- I just love
/23, it
his
makes
character
sense.
in this movie.
Seems good.
He's
They're
just
still
like a
playing
chill
Fortnite
dude.
in 2023. Like that's a sin in itself. You should be playing
He goes
Apex.
in to talk to Thor, and he's
Okay,
the one
Haley,
with
don't
clear
don't
head,
put
like,
don't
what?
push it.
Like,
I actually thought
imagine
about that,
being
Haley.
in 2011 and you're trying to explain to someone, yeah, in the later movie, Hulk just talks to Thor and tries to get him to become a superhero.
Right after dabbing with kids.
It actually makes sense for them to still be playing Fortnite since half the population died. It's unlikely that the
Yeah,
development
if
of
there's not a
games
lot of
would
progress
be
in
the same
general,
pace.
it seems like
Yeah.
there's not a lot of social
Oh, that's a
progress
really
since
good
then.
point.
Wait a second.
Hmm.
So last time the
Half
Earth
of Epic
saw Hulk,
Games.
last time the Earth saw Hulk was in Age of Ultron when he was a menace who destroyed like a whole town and killed a bunch of people. Only reason he escaped punishment was because he left Earth.
And then half the
In
Earth got
Civil War, Ross was like talking about it. They were still like hunting him down, and like Ross is at the funeral, so he's still active in 2023. Are they fine with the Hulk just like being in society,
I mean, yeah,
dabbing with kids?
it's been 5 years for him to make
Half the
amends
government's
for it,
gone
and
now.
also,
Yeah.
5 years of him
Yeah.
being in prison.
And also helped develop
I mean,
time
well, before
travel.
Hulk was a monster, and now he's not. So,
Yeah.
like, I think
Good
that
luck
makes a big
convincing Ross
difference.
that. But
He would have made a really cool cameo.
Do
I
you
mean,
think-
Ross definitely seems a
the movie.
little.
He was.
Who is Ross? I don't know who. I just think the guy from Friends.
Thunderbolt
right now.
Ross is Hulk's,
Yes,
like,
Ross from
nemesis.
Friends.
He's the dude who was in Civil War as part of the government. I think he was the Secretary of State who introduced the Sokovia Accords. But he showed up before that in Incredible Hulk, and he hates Bruce Banner and the Hulk with a passion because like he wanted
He
to
hunted
be with
him
his
down
daughter.
for like the longest time.
He hunted him down for like years and wanted to put him in prison at any cost. And now he's just like dabbing with kids.
Oh yeah.
He's a
that
menace
guy.
to society. Send him to the slammer.
I want to fixate on like a very small, pointless detail because I'm irritating like that, and that is just that they're playing Fortnite, all right? And in this universe, Fortnite is
Yeah.
canonized, but inside Fortnite, Thanos appeared. That is really
No.
dark, you know?
Yeah, well,
It's just like, hey, we have a video game.
I didn't
This
think
guy
about it.
wiped out half your friends, probably your entire family, but you can play us in Fortnite.
Man, Epic Games is so insensitive. What the heck, guys? What the
That
heck?
was the perfect opportunity for Core to be playing as Thanos and just have.
That's
Thanos
a really
and
good
Thanos.
point. They have
That is
Thanos in the
really-
game.
That's really weird. How does that work? That's kind of like a
Dark talking to
very...
him, you think Fortnite was just a game? No, Fortnite was life.
It was a life simulator.
It's kind of the same thing as like in Winter Soldier when Captain pulls out his little like notepad and he sees that Star Wars is crossed off.
Yep.
It's like, so did you notice that Nick Fury was a Jedi? Did you make that connection?
So you guys think
Yeah.
that's weird? They reference Disney in I think Iron Man 1 or 2, one of those two. There's like something about an event going on at Disney Hall Walk of Fame or something like that.
All
It
right.
was on TV. So Disney exists in this universe, meaning
Fair
they
enough.
have an MCU.
Oh god.
That's some really weird meta paradox
Plot
territory we're
twist. The
stepping into.
MCU in the MCU is the Defenders. It's like all the superheroes. You're moving.
It's just a TV show in the MCU.
Cap
That's
watches
why-
Luke Cage.
Yeah.
I guess that was the deal that Epic had with the MCU, is that hey, we can have Thanos appear in our game, but then Fortnite has to appear in the last movie.
That's
Is that
probably
just-
what it was.
That seems like a win-win for Epic Games and not so much
I guess,
for...
yeah. So
Seems like an epic
when I was
deal to
saying
me.
that out loud, it was just kind of when like,
That seems very one-sided, yeah.
Yeah,
That's what he's
there's
saying.
probably some other stuff going on behind the scenes. so.
Scene would have been 10 times worse without Korg and Meek, though. If it was just Thor playing Fortnite, I would
Yeah.
have probably hated it. But they got a cameo in with those guys. So
Yeah, it was only good because of Korg and Meek.
I wish
Oh, is
they
that
had been
the-
in
the
more,
British
but that was
rock
good.
guy?
yeah,
Yeah.
the guy from
New
I love
Zealand,
him.
New
I really
Zealand,
wish-
New Zealand rock guy.
Yeah, New Zealand was it? I really liked him.
Max, that's
I
you
saw-
as an MCU character.
Oh, my
really?
gosh.
Yep.
That's cool. I'm a rock
Totally cool.
guy. I'm a
You're
I'm
a rock raider.
Raiders rock
Ah.
monster. Yeah, let's go.
Beat
We've
people
been speaking
that
about
raise
Ragnarok
scissors.
cameos. What about Valkyrie being?
Valkyrie.
No, but I felt like she was underrepresented. I mean, I guess until the final fight,
she
but
doesn't have a role in the
Yeah,
franchise
she's very
so far.
similar to Captain Marvel, where she had her roles and she was awesome when she was there, but she just wasn't in a lot.
No, which I'm fine with. Putting her in the movie more
Yeah,
would
I
have
was
been
cool with that.
shoehorned.
it would have
But,
been it would have been hard to juggle that in. But it's kind of a bummer.
Yeah, I like cheered every time Valkyrie showed up. And also, can we talk about how Captain Marvel was barely in the movie?
I love that
The
part.
haircut. The freaking haircut was amazing.
Oh boy,
Dude,
X. Oh
I
boy.
love the haircut.
Can I
yeah,
ask?
That was a nice
I-
effect.
It turned
did-
out a lot better than I thought it would.
Yeah, same. Like I didn't really see Brie Larson as being Captain Marvel when they first casted her. Like she didn't really look like it to me in my head. But when she got that haircut, I was like, oh.
Is that closer
she's
to how it
Captain
originally
Marvel,
was?
That's her.
Like, because they filmed Captain Marvel after Endgame.
Oh, okay, yeah. So someone brought this up at UPS. I was wondering this too. That's like that
Like-
doesn't make sense. Her hair is short in Infinity War.
And her
How
hair is
she-
long in real life. Like, how
was
did
she
that
wearing a
happen?
wig the entire time?
Was it CG? Like, was her hair?
It might have been CG. It wouldn't have been that hard to do.
because she wasn't in it
Yeah,
a
it's
lot.
just hair.
It's
Yeah.
just
And
hair.
whenever
Yeah.
she
What they
was
did
in it,
was they
like,
probably
glowing the whole
filmed
time.
all of her short hair scenes very, very early on, and then they allowed her to grow her hair
Well,
out a little bit.
I don't
they
know.
could do
I would
the
say
movie
I
best.
mean I was watching some behind the scenes
Did
stuff
she ever have short hair?
earlier today.
recently?
They could have just had a motion cap bald cap
Yeah.
for her. They,
Probably.
they could have
yeah,
CG'd
yeah,
the short
you're
hair.
Right. You're right.
Okay.
So, Captain Marvel did not work
Yes.
for me whatsoever. Like, I'm open to people who like Captain Marvel, but the issue that I had with Captain Marvel is that within the Marvel Cinematic Universe, I feel like a lot of characters across all these movies, even though I haven't seen all of them, they've
Mhm.
kind of justified their power and their respect and sort of. And I feel like, and I don't know much about Captain Marvel, but from my understanding, she's kind of like the Superman of Marvel. Like she's super powerful, etc. But I feel like she just kind of came in and just like, hey, I'm better than all y'all. And it's,
Well, did you
Just
see
gotta deal with
the
it.
Did you see the Captain Marvel movie?
I did see the Captain Marvel movie,
Okay,
and
then yeah.
I had the same
exactly-
feeling in that movie as well. And I just,
You and most people.
yeah, and I feel like they could have done that really. I
Well-
feel like they could have done that character really well, but it was just kind of like,
Power
hey,
scaling was my concern with her, especially in this movie. I wanted them to go the route of her like having, an arc of some kind in this movie, or Thanos like nerfing her with the stones. They didn't go that route at all. They instead decided to barely put her in the movie, which I kind of
She just
respect because this
exploded.
isn't her movie. She's basically in there as a glorified cameo, pretty much.
Yeah.
she exploded with next to an engine, and then she says she's busy all the time, and then she just comes back.
Yeah, I felt like
Yeah.
she did. I felt like it was just convenient, quote unquote, convenient that she came back at the perfect time, like in the middle of that
Yeah.
fight.
was. But at the same time, I understand why they didn't want to make the movie all about her and like having her grow and change or whatever.
Yeah, I feel like her powers might have made the movie a bit too easy if she had been through it the entire ride.
Whatever.
Yeah.
So that's probably
And I
why
feel
they
like
could
the
kept her
possibly
out.
been-
because everyone was like fear mongering, you know, that she was gonna beat Thanos. It was gonna be terrible, but she did. She fought him, but he actually fended her off, and she didn't
Yeah.
live the final
Her
But-
blow.
main purpose really was to help set up the movie. Like she's the one that ended up bringing Tony Stark back to Earth and then bringing all of them to Thanos.
Yeah, and I respect that. That does not give her movie a pass because
doesn't.
the criticism still stands. It just now falls onto the sequel to fix her, which fair enough. I should have never really expected the Russos to fix her while doing so much as well. So I don't know.
I don't know. I'm just
Yeah.
I just still have so many questions about her in general and what the heck she's been doing in space for like 20 plus years.
Lot of
Like,
other planets.
she's really busy, man.
Apparently she didn't know about Thanos apparently all those years, but she was aware of Ronan because she was a Kree, but she didn't take any time to stop Thanos. Like, man, their
Poor
plot
Ronan,
could have
but he
involved.
almost blew up Xandar.
In 2014,
Like,
they
why
could have
couldn't you
summoned.
get the Battle of Wakanda, but you could show up for this one.
This
Or how do
is
you
the
feel
only
about Captain
emergency.
Marvel?
I thought her usage in the film was perfect for me. Like I didn't want her to be in it any more than she was, and I didn't want her to be in it any less than she was. She had the exact amount of screen time that I thought was like the
I
perfect
completely
usage
agree.
of her, and she was
Okay.
used effectively. Like her power set came in at the perfect time, and it was used
Mhm.
really well. She wasn't too OP, but at the same time was very obviously
Yeah.
the strongest person there. I
Her
thought they
fight
did a good
against
job of
Thanos
balancing
was
that.
amazing.
Strongest
Is she
Avenger.
supposed to be like a is she supposed to be like a cocky character, or like is she supposed to be like playful? I never
don't
understood.
know what her
Well,
character is really supposed to be, but the Captain
It-
Marvel movie leads me to believe that she's kind of like a stoic, yet also kind of like sassy kind of character.
Yeah.
I think her
She's
independence
sassy, she's
leads
cocky.
to some degree of cockiness, but
Yeah, I think they're definitely intentionally making her cocky.
She's very
Like that is a flaw
Yeah.
of her character that I think is
Yeah.
going to be addressed.
I just wish that they made her justified, because I feel like she could be a very, but for me that is
Well,
strictly just my opinion. I feel like they should have made her more justified the way she did things, the way she acted, except basically.
well, I mean, in terms of her cockiness, it's justified because she obviously is the
Yeah.
strongest person there.
But
But
powers.
justifying her power set is one thing that I just don't think that's what this film is for.
No.
That
Oh,
will
yeah,
be
no.
Complaint for her movie, and honestly, like it's no
Yeah,
different
that
than
was
any of
the
the other
one.
BS. You know, characters get powers because random crazy event in comics. You know, like Electro becomes an electric god because he fell into a vat of eels in Spider-Man. I don't know
you
if that's
forgot
like
my
ours, but-
birthday.
that is absolutely not how it goes in the comics.
Fair. Well, point being, they do dumb stuff in the movies. Carol becoming a god because the cube engine, it wasn't even the Tesseract, it was like the engine made from the Tesseract, like exploded and went into her, is kind of weird, but I don't necessarily disbelieve it any more than I believe Wanda becoming a witch because they experimented on her in Hydra. It doesn't really make a lot
Or
of
it's like
sense.
dark matter lightning
I'm
bolt
back.
hits the forensic scientist.
hey,
you
X.
know, he can time travel.
Yeah. I do think that you can have crazy powers even if they're not justified, so long as you find appropriate weaknesses.
Mhm.
And Carol right now has no weaknesses.
The
I
Power
wanna-
Stone.
That's what I was getting at. Is like
The sin of
I don't
pride.
think that this movie is the movie that's going to justify her powers, and
No.
I don't think it should
Oh,
have been. Nor do I think it needs to be justified at this point in time. It's going to be the sequel that's going to justify the powers. I do believe that her cockiness right now is part of her growth as a character that they're setting up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This will be addressed, I believe.
Yeah.
Okay.
I hope so.
She'll meet someone that will best her.
Yeah, she's gonna meet someone that's gonna kick her butt,
Oh yeah.
and it's gonna
I do-
put her in her place.
It's gonna humble her.
Yeah, exactly.
I-
I think that's
I
what
do
they're
want-
They got plenty of years of her life to work with.
right. Exactly.
I
To
do want
find
to
that one
explain the
villain.
whole like what I mean by the justification thing is just that I, as a viewer, and what I've seen, like not getting into the technicals as their powers design. I can't just putting her like on the same level as Thor or Tony Stark, etc. Just from what I've seen. Like that's what I mean by justification. If that makes any
fair.
sense. Does that make any sense? Or
Mhm.
just
I get it.
Oh, it makes sense.
I don't
from
know.
what I've
Maybe
She's a different
Thor, but like
character
I don't know about
to
Captain,
Captain.
or I don't know about Iron
Yeah,
Man.
I would connect her most with Thor because Thor started kind of. the same
Thor
way.
is literally a god, so I can understand how like being like, yeah, I need some justification to explain why she's stronger than him. I get that.
Mhm.
Iron Man is like, all right, well,
Is she
Iron
stronger
Man's
than Thor?
a dude in a suit.
I think so.
not in
Thor's been nerfed a lot.
not in like
Is
technical
this
terms,
just me?
but in like I've seen,
Whoa.
you know,
Robot X
Okay.
I
is
don't know.
back.
X
Really.
X something.
What?
Your mic is kill.
Beep, boop, beep, boop, beep.
Oh,
Yeah,
am
he's
I?
a kill.
You Robo X has joined the call.
Welcome back,
I
Measly.
destroy humans.
X say I've got strings and now I'm free.
Event.
I've got string me.
Why do we exist? Just to suffer.
Oh,
All right.
I'm having.
Avengers: Age of Extron.
I'm down.
Oh no! Now he's X. You back with us, bro?
Am I?
No. Yeah, synthesis complete.
Well, rest in peace, X.
I mean, try changing the server. Or unless that's gonna screw up the
No,
recording.
I don't know.
It won't.
Okay.
Hello?
You
Hello.
talk crap about Captain Marvel. Now she's gonna get her revenge.
She's torpedoing you.
Say something real quick, X.
Hello?
Yeah, it's on you. It's on your
Yeah,
end,
it's gotta be you and your mic.
You're gonna have to figure out what's going on.
I think you're done, dude. I think you're done with this episode.
You might unplug your mic, rejoin the call, do whatever you can.
Yeah, we will carry on without you.
no, he can be our
carry
time
on.
travel specialist.
We can still do it. It'll be fun.
Here, I'll play dumb with time travel
Well,
when we get to it.
Great.
Mm.
We're about an hour in now.
Yeah, the other things to talk about really is just the final act.
Yeah.
We've pretty much done all this setup. Let's talk about the incredible, amazing, beyond
Final
phenomenal
battle.
payoff. Hey,
Oh,
X.
there we go. Wonderful. Welcome back.
I'm good.
Yes.
You're good.
You beat
You're
you
good.
beat her. That's crazy.
Let's continue.
So when the final battle started and it was Thor and Cap and Iron Man versus Thanos, I remember thinking, Cap doesn't even stand a chance. Like he's just walking up there
He's
with
the
like
dude.
amazing kicks and like flips and stuff, and he just takes him and throws him. Like there's no way.
Dude, they
It's the power of America's ace.
Until Mjolnir,
Until Mjolnir.
and then suddenly Cap was a legend.
I thought it was Vision. I 100 thought it was gonna be Vision.
Why'd you think it was
walking up.
Vision?
Because Vision's the only other one who's picked up the hammer, so
Vision
I
was
thought it was
dead.
gonna be.
yeah.
Vision's gone.
He unsnapped though, so I thought
Vision
maybe.
didn't get snapped.
Yeah, but it was,
he
I just didn't know.
got his head snapped.
But-
Got
Dude, oh my God.
splooshed.
Guys, so the unsnapping part, the
Mhm.
way they did this was so brilliant.
Yes.
So like they
Brilliant
managed
stuff.
to do the snap, right?
Mhm.
And it brings everybody back, and there's like this
That
moment
was
where
so
They
hype.
prove it
There's-
with Laura.
they prove it with the call from Laura, right? But they only dwell on it long enough for you to confirm that the people
Yeah.
that was killed were brought back. But the genius thing that they
Oh
do
my
is that
gosh.
they immediately shoot down the tower the
Oh
moment
yeah.
you make that realization. They do
you
it
forget
in
about it.
time that you forget
Yeah.
Yeah.
that all the heroes from Infinity War were also part of the snap. So
Mhm.
then later in the fight, when they come back, it's like, oh,
That's right.
Yeah.
They're alive.
I was alive
That
a few
was
times,
such
and I
hype.
said,
all the
"Did the
portals.
snap worked? Like,
Yeah,
where is
We were saying
everybody?
numerous times, why are they taking so long?
What's going on? Like, they're
Actually,
alive, right?"
Yeah.
Dude,
So it didn't
that-
necessarily work for us,
Perfect time.
but most.
Then they had some like amazing shots. You got the
Oh,
trio,
the
Iron Man,
silhouettes.
Cap, and
The
Thor
silhouettes.
walking up to
Oh,
Yeah, for-
Thanos. They
Mhm.
start fighting
me,
and do all the combos.
Cap facing the whole army by
me,
Best
himself.
shot in the movie.
Half
That
the
shot
field.
right there. Of
the
Cap
shot
facing everyone
shot
was
where Cap is
amazing.
walking to the
Yeah.
army, and it's
Yup.
just
Mhm.
him facing off against this
Mhm.
entire like
with half a shield.
with half. That was a beautiful, beautiful.
Ugh.
I could have that
You
as a
can do this all
painting on
day.
my wall.
And that's the
Yes.
thing from the comics they were dating an homage to, right? Where like
Yeah,
Thanos is
from
victorious,
Infinity Gauntlet.
and the only
Mhm.
person to stand up to him is Cap. And
Mhm.
like, yeah, that's kind of what they were adapting. It
Oh,
was
yeah.
cool.
And then hearing Sam come in on, oh, it was so
Cat
good.
on your left, dude. Yeah, it was so good because like it's like that the line happens and I'm like, huh,
Mhm.
that was is that who is that? Is that Rhodey? What was? And then it's like
Falcon.
Sam. It's Sam on your left, and I was like, oh
That moment
my
was such hype.
God.
It was so
That
hyped.
last final battle.
You saw one portal open, and it's like, oh snap, they're back. But then you see all the
All
other
of them.
portals.
The final
start
battle was
opening,
not
and like,
just grand in
whoa.
scale and good choreography, but it had like a billion references to
Oh,
other
yeah.
movies, like Spider-Man's instant kill mode.
Yes,
There's actually
that was-
and Black Panther knowing Clint's name.
Giant
It was
man.
like
Yeah.
giant.
There's
Monster
actually
Horse.
a weird thing about that shot that actually kind of. So when the first portal opens and it's Black Panther and the
Cool, yeah,
Shuri,
Yeah.
there was that scene actually kind of creeped me out in a weird way.
Yeah.
Because they're coming through the portal and there's like no like music or anything playing and they're walking really slowly and ominously. And I look over at Shuri and she's like so thin. And I look at Black Panther and he's also kind of thin. So it kind of creeped me out. I thought they were doing like a these guys are kind of zombified or something for a
Yeah.
moment.
That would have been
Oh,
cool.
God.
I think what they were trying to do is just like this sense of disbelief, like the impossible happening.
Yeah,
But
I,
you're
I,
right. It was,
I
it was
get
definitely a little unsettling.
it was yeah, it was really unsettling the first time I saw it.
Huh.
So
The afterlife, almost.
No comment.
Yeah.
They
on
weren't.
that.
They were just stepping in from
Yeah.
Wakanda.
Now, like after every single superhero movie that has come out, I can honestly say that final battle was the most comic book movie I've ever seen
Yep.
before.
Yes.
Yeah.
What do you
It
mean by
was
that?
Screaming comic book, like the shot where they're all running together, like every single hero.
that was
Every
Thanos,
single
everyone
Avenger
flying,
in one
then
shot.
the
was
giant man,
incredible,
and then
man.
it just felt like a
It
comic
was
book
the
movie.
ultimate fan service and
The
the positive
environment
side.
was just-
Spider-Man slinging
Mhm.
off of Mjolnir while holding the Infinity Gauntlet and landing on a Pegasus with Valkyrie. Like, what?
Try spoiling that for someone. Be like, yeah, right.
Imagine traveling back in time to 2008 and going like walking in front of the screen at the end of Iron Man 1, right? And being like, all right, everybody, I'm glad you enjoyed this film. Guess what? In 20 years, you have this to look forward to, or
Yeah.
11 years, whatever. You have this to look forward to, and he just like plays a clip of Spider-Man swinging from Mjolnir, grabbing onto Valkyrie, running with the Infinity Gauntlet as millions.
No one
of
would believe
or
it.
just show the one shot of everyone coming together right before Avengers Assemble. Like that
No one would
alone
believe
is
it.
like this is what
Avengers assemble.
Assemble.
He finally said
And
it.
grabbing the hammer.
You said it almost like relieved. Like, yeah, it could
I
be
finally
done.
get to say the A word.
Avengers! Assemble.
I kind of imagine like after saying that, everybody in the back of the army is like, "What? What do you say?"
Yeah.
But if
You got to speak a little louder.
What?
Did everyone
Oh,
see the
oh,
cheer
we're
when I'm
going.
walking?
Oh, we're going.
yes.
Oh
Everyone
yes,
cheered.
Okay.
there was so much.
Was anyone was anything?
I had a very reserved theater.
My theater was so awesome, dude. Oh
Mhm.
man, I gotta tell
Absolutely.
you guys about this whole experience. This was the best movie theater experience I think I've ever had.
Same.
Like,
Mhm.
Same.
first,
Same.
my friend and I, we show up 3 hours early to save seats for the rest of our friends because there's no reserved
Mhm.
seating at this theater. We go and we're panicking. We're like, oh man, we took so long to get ready because I'm packing a bunch of stuff. I'm packing my laptop with Infinity War on it so we can watch it while we wait in line or whatever. We go, there's no traffic. And so it's like, okay, cool. We go into the theater, there's nobody there. There's like maybe a couple people there. So we're like, uh-oh, everybody's in line. We go upstairs, we go up all the way to the theater. Nobody's there. We see where the line is supposed to be, and there's no one. So we go and we sit down and we're like, sweet, we're the first ones in line. This is great. We start setting up for the laptop and everything. Security guard comes around. We're expecting her to say something like, oh, go away or whatever. But she goes into the theater. She comes back out and she says, "You know, you guys can just go inside. There's nobody in
that's
there,
so
and it's
nice.
all clean."
Oh, that's so
Phenomenal.
nice.
Nobody was watching the previous movie, and we're like, "What?" We're thinking they were running Avengers or testing it or whatever because we heard screaming and stuff. No, turns out the last movie that was playing was Hellboy. So we go into the theater and it's completely clean, and we're like, "Okay, I guess nobody wanted to see Hellboy." Sweet.
Correct.
We get the seats that we want. We set up. We put our jackets all on the other seats to save for our other friends. We're like, cool, awesome. I set up my laptop. I have a portable speaker. We get Infinity War playing, and it's great. Our friends start showing up later on, and we start getting snacks. More people start showing up, but the theater doesn't really get filled up until maybe a good the last 45 minutes until showtime. So it was crazy. We didn't have to deal with any trouble
so
or anything. One of our friends brought up a concern though, like, "Oh, one time I tried to do this too, or I got my seats early, and then later on a security guard asked me and my crew to get up and go back in line. So they might do that to us. Just a warning." So we're like, "Ooh, I really hope that doesn't happen,
The
because I would
oofening.
fight somebody." I was prepared to fight someone. Like, no, we got here 3 hours early. We're
that would
keeping our
be
seats.
complete BS if they did
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
But I believed her for a moment because that did happen. I think that happened to me before. I don't remember for what movie, but it did sound familiar. So I was like, I was clinging on to hope that because it was a security guard that told us we could go in, we'd be okay.
It'd be okay. Yeah.
And lo and behold, people start pouring into the theater, and we're like, sweet, we're good.
Very
And
nice.
then halfway through Infinity War, that we're watching it on the laptop, a bunch of people start taking seats right behind us, and they start joining in and commentating with us.
No way.
Great. Yeah, it was hilarious. There's a guy in front of us who's like chatting with us about Marvel stuff, and then we're going through the whole movie, and I turn around at one point, and it's like that part in Biocraft where all the Onu Matoran are right behind Takua.
Oh,
after
nice.
he's done talking to Wenua. There's just a bunch of people crowded up watching behind me. And it was
When Ahmud
hilarious.
turns around and sees all the Onu
Yeah.
Matoran around.
It's fantastic.
Then, finally, before showtime, a little bit before showtime, a security guard comes up, or not a security guard, just some guy that works in the theater. He comes up, and I'm thinking he's gonna tell me to put the movie away because.
Ah,
of the
crap.
speaker or
Here we
whatever.
go again.
Yeah, so he comes up, he stands in front of where I was sitting, and then he says something, and I didn't catch what he said. So I paused the movie. Everyone's completely silent. All the talking stops. The movie stops, so it's dead silent. And he goes, "Is that a laptop?" And I'm like, "Yeah, it's a laptop." And he goes, "Wow!" And then the speaker too. Like, that's awesome. That's a good idea, man. I'm like, "Thanks, dude." And then immediately everyone behind me starts laughing. They're all
Great.
start applauding. They're like, "Yeah, dude.
Very nice.
It's great." He goes,
That's
"Yeah,
awesome,
that's
Marvel
awesome.
fan.
Oh man, you guys have fun, all right?" And I'm like, "Thanks, dude. Gotcha." And then we start playing the movie again.
That's awesome.
Then the ultimate
Then-
Marvel fan.
As soon as the credits have finished for Infinity War, I put the laptop away, and as soon as I stuff it in my bag, the movie, or was it the previews start?
Dang!
great.
Then
Van
That's
with the
great.
timing. Van
It
with
was
the timing.
nuts. I turned my friends. I'm like,
scary.
"All right, now that we've finished Infinity War," and then boom, like something starts going on. Like, I turn to all my friends. I'm like, "Oh my god, what?"
Oh,
So it was
awesome, dude.
great. And then the movie goes on. There's all these great reactions. Everyone's
Oh, yeah.
cheering and applauding and reacting to all this stuff. And
mhm.
oh, it was amazing, man.
Very
Like,
nice.
This is the movie theater where you want to be in a theater with everyone who wants to cheer too.
Yeah, you really do, man. Like,
Yeah.
because I saw it twice. First time
Wah,
wasn't much
wah,
fun.
wah.
I cared.
I'll
Second
never,
time, though, it enhanced the
I'll
viewing
never have a
experience so
vocal
much.
showing.
Nope.
You know, you want to know what had
Ooh.
the most cheers in the movie?
Well,
Kappa Mjolnir.
No,
No.
surprisingly, it was not that. The one scene where literally everybody stood up and started like clapping and shouting was when Pepper Potts came down in her rescue
Yeah.
armor.
Really?
Weird.
Huh.
Yeah, everyone in the theater cheered at that. I was
Well,
surprised.
My
was
theater
it? Was
cheered
that the
at that too.
female scene?
That
or
was so
that
hype.
was-
No, not the people.
Go
She comes out.
women.
It
I mean,
was
it was
the
certainly
one-
a hype moment, but
it was just the moment when she saved people.
Innovation.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was surprised. Like a lot of people really liked that scene.
I
It was
love
a
the
very big
shot
throwback
of
to like
her
Iron Man
and
1.
I love the shot of her and Tony kind of like
Yep.
teaming up and
Yep,
doing
that
the
was good.
unibeam thing and all that.
Yeah.
Like, oh,
I mean, I think I probably would have liked it more if Pepper Potts, the last time she had done anything remotely like combat related, was I am the Mandarin. Probably may have left a better impression on me.
But the one shot where she and Tony are just like back to back,
Yes,
like firing
yeah.
into the thing. Oh my god,
So-
it was so
was so
cool.
Can we talk about
No.
the big death?
That got
The
spoiled
big,
by me, by some stupid guy. So
No.
yeah, so it
No.
kind of ruined the
The
entire
big
movie.
death. Wait,
Dude,
what's
I heard
wait?
this football player
What did
on
I
Twitter
tell you
spoiled it for
About
thousands of people.
spoiling this movie for yourself, it would have been if you spoiled this movie for yourself. Number
Listen,
one, you're a horrible
It's
person.
not
Number
100%
two,
everybody's fault.
Yeah,
I
there
heard
there are
others
there are
That's
people
not
going
what
on a
if you
campaign to spoil it for
people,
people.
yeah.
Yeah,
But if
Like,
you
there
don't
are-
do that,
It's
Don't.
just bad. Yeah, don't spell it.
and
Well,
if you are looking to spoil yourself, don't do that.
Well, no,
either.
the people that spoil the movie don't care though. They love
Yeah.
making people mad. You're not going to
know,
dissuade
They're
them
the
at
most
this point.
pathetic human beings ever.
Yeah.
Someone made a
That's so-
comparison to say that they're like people running around popping balloons.
Yes,
That's how
uh,
pathetic it
hello.
is.
What do you have to
this
say?
is how stupid this spoiler thing went through. Is
Go
that
on.
people were pissed about Luna's Howl being nerfed, so any
Which I did
video
say.
talking about that has just been like they've just peppered every video talking about that, spoiling Infinity War in response.
in the comments?
In the comments
Oh
on
yeah,
any
people are
video.
going, yeah,
No,
people are
people-
going
wait.
everywhere.
The people
On
are
any-
pissed off because a Destiny gun got nerfed, so they
Yeah,
spoil
so
in-game in the comments.
In the comments, yeah, that's how
Because
stupid
they're
it is.
mad?
Yeah, because they're mad. So
Dude, people
if
are
you go
spoiling it for any reason.
And it
Yeah.
had nothing to do with Marvel.
That's how
and
stupid
people
that
were-
is.
Oh, that's so,
Wow.
people like
Yeah.
that. Oh.
Yeah,
And
see,
I-
I avoided the comments for any video that I was watching.
Yeah,
I deleted
Yeah.
all
I
my
managed-
social media until the day. I didn't watch anything.
I couldn't stay
related
off
to
Reddit,
it.
and yet all I got spoiled on was Jarvis. Go me.
I got
People
out
got
everything.
spoiled on that though. That would have been
And-
amazing having him just pop up without even realizing there was
noticed.
going to be a cameo. Well, I would have noticed.
Bah.
I've been like,
I'm so
Yeah, but you're not him.
that's Jarvis.
The crazy
I'm
thing
really-
is this movie is so chock full of spoilers that if you
Mhm.
get spoiled one thing,
Yeah.
it might not be that big a deal. Like you could still probably enjoy
Except for
rest
the
of
big
movie
death.
because
The big death
That's
is the
what I
one
was
thing
gonna
you really
say.
don't want to
The
be spoiled
big
on.
death.
yeah.
Big Death is the one spoiler that will mess you up.
Even though
If you're listening to this,
Okay,
Carter
that's fine.
Wellington, if I ever meet you in America, I will kick you in the ball sack. You know,
In the
at
ace.
all. In
Fair
the
enough.
ace, that too. It's gonna be stuck in there for like at least 10 hours. That's how.
Oh,
Ooh.
You missed the first time, but then the second time you got both of them.
You should have gone for the head.
Oh my god.
no,
Actually, for
Tony's
Var,
death-
oh,
was masterfully done.
Oh yeah.
I really do. Spoilers is a big thing for me in movies because I love being surprised, and I'm always like kind of like, oh, what's gonna happen now? So I love being just like, even though that big Tony like thing was big for me, like it's just kind of spoiled a lot of the movie. Nonetheless, I'm really glad that I got to see the beginning of the movie without being spoiled because, like we said earlier, like the opening thing of just Thanos dying, that was still incredible. That was cool.
Yeah.
I like that because it averted expectations.
Mhm.
So I still got the
Yeah, exactly. There's
the cool
still
things didn't get spoiled. Yeah, there's still things in there that I enjoyed
Yeah,
that I
Cap
didn't
with the
get.
hammer.
I was just pleased a lot of the
Also-
theories didn't happen. Like I remember Var going
Yeah.
back and forth. He's like, "This is Cap's movie to die." No, wait, no, this is Tony's movie to die. No, wait, this is totally Cap's movie to die.
Cap finally got his days.
I mean,
Yeah, I know. I mean,
technically I was right.
Yeah, technically, but
Yeah, technically, both of the characters were retired.
yeah,
Both of the
it's not just one or the other.
Yeah,
It's
I-
both.
Sweet way.
It's both.
At no point was I saying that Cap was gonna die. I was always like saying Tony was gonna be the one that
I
died.
wanted Cap to die, but it makes more sense
because of the way that
because it's the Russo brothers. The Russo brothers have directed every Cap movie besides his first one. So it was like if they want to kill someone.
No, but he did think
look,
Tony was gonna die at the start.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was wrong about that. I'm just saying, like, technically, I was right about who I thought was going to die, and my reasoning for it was pretty sound.
Look, the reason why
knew
I
Tony
kind of
was going to
reasoned
die, and even
kinda
when it
reasoned
happened, I was still shocked and in awe and shook.
Well, I was shocked by how it
Still
happened,
kinda shook.
but I kind of reasoned out who was going to die because I knew both of them were going to be taken off the board, if that makes any sense. But, you know, one of them was going to retire, and then one of them was going to die. And if they had Tony retire and Cap die, then the universe would have an endless supply of Stark tech because he wouldn't stop inventing, even if he retired, you know? And when he needs something, they can just go to Tony and hook him up. He can hook him up with some sweet new gear. But with Cap, the one retiring, he can only exist to give advice. And no one's going to seek that advice because he's done with being in the movies. If Tony lived, but Robert Downey Jr. was done in the movies, then people would always ask, why isn't Tony helping with blank?
Mm-hmm.
Well,
So
they'll
had to
come
make
up
that
with
one
some new
permanent.
excuse because I mean Wakanda's making all those outreach centers and all that stuff, so they're definitely going to be sharing more.
They'll
of
be
the
the
tech.
new tech people.
Yeah, they'll be the new Tonys.
But for now, this made the most like narrative
Yeah.
consequences.
And also the
Definitely.
line. Can we just talk about the line?
What line?
Line.
I am.
I am Iron Man.
That was the only thing he could have said in that moment.
That was his-
It was
those were-
beautiful.
Yeah,
Those were
it
his-
was amazing.
It was
Last words.
almost his dying words.
Yep.
He said
His
Pepper
last
Potts
words in
very,
Iron Man
very
1 and his
quietly.
last words here.
Mm-hmm.
Dude,
It was so sad too. Like after
I freaking
after the
cried.
fact, after he snaps and he looks like
Yeah.
he just blew up a nuke in his hand. Like he's
Mm-hmm.
completely beaten down. He's
All that gamma
shaken up.
radiation.
He's roasted.
He can't
Oh
even-
my
he couldn't
gosh,
even
X.
speak.
How
Like, he
dare
couldn't say
you?
a single word. It was so sad to see him in that state.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then Pepper goes up to him and
You can
reassures
rest.
him.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my
I-
god, that part really broke me.
Yeah, dude. I don't usually cry in movies. I've noticed that I'm doing it more recently. I found that like movies are making me feel more emotional.
You're getting
nowadays
softer,
than-
Var.
Yeah, I guess so. But you like I've only ever like had like a single tear kind of thing, you know. But for this movie, like I freaking cried at that death, dude. That was really like emotional. That like oh my gosh. And
Definitely powerful.
it was like I technically cried like 5 separate times, but it was all like rapid fire. Like I cried, and then like as I'm getting over it, something else happens, and I'm like,
The closest I came was Morgan asking for a cheeseburger, and
that was one of the
Happy
moments.
Hogan saying like, "I'll make you a cheeseburger."
What was that referencing though?
But when
fact
Tony
that
Stark when Tony
when
Stark
Tony-
comes back in
Yeah.
Iron Man 1, he asks for a cheeseburger. This is the first.
Oh
First thing he wants, he
yeah.
doesn't want the hospital.
like
he doesn't want
the
anything. He
first
wants a
thing
press
he wants,
conference and a
yeah.
cheeseburger.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I remember that now. Yeah, that's kind of a reference to like a personal thing with Robert
Mhm.
Downey Jr. Because
Yeah.
that made him go through. Yeah, yeah.
That so the
That's-
cheeseburger thing made me cry. The proof that Tony Stark has a heart thing made me cry. The
Mhm.
funeral
That- that
itself made me cry.
You love
Um,
me, or I love you 3000.
I love you 3000 made me cry, and then Pepper saying you can rest
can
now
rest.
made me cry. Yeah.
Well,
You can
It's,
rest now.
it's too. It's a shame
The
that
kid in it, you knew.
it's
I
too
knew
bad
it
that
was
gonna happen.
it's too bad that
Like,
she got stuck
she
with
was-
her mom because she only loves her in the 600 to 900 range.
Yeah.
Got him.
Got him.
Feels
I
bad.
feel. I was waiting for the Doctor Strange moment, like the entire thing. The one in a 14 million was it or something? I don't know.
Yeah.
I was really. I'm a bit iffy about the logic here because there's a couple of issues that I have. I do understand it's a movie. You can't really nitpick every single loophole that you see.
Well, you can. People will.
Well, you can,
Oh, you
and
can.
I will because I am that kind of person. But and also when we looked at Doctor Strange with Tony Stark, and he pointed his finger up. I thought he was gonna. I thought he was just gonna be like Tony Stark. Look up, man. Look up. And I was waiting for him to look up, and then he didn't.
I thought that too for a second, but no.
Yeah, I was
No.
like, what
It meant-
do you mean? And I felt that moment was kind of underwhelming in that, like, I do understand that like Tony Stark dying obviously is a huge thing, but they kind of been juggling this all over the place in this battlefield. And
Mhm.
one of these wizard guys could just open that orange portal and just stuck that in there, and then just somewhere else.
Mhm.
And I thought the logic behind the stones or whatever was that like you have to be like super powerful or whatever to do the thing. So Tony Stark could do the thing, right? And he's just a regular guy, except for his like heart, like on a
Mhm.
base sense without his suit, right? So couldn't anyone
He's
snap
just
the
a
thing
guy,
then?
huh?
Yes, anyone could have done it, but they would have died.
Yeah.
But
Correct.
Tony Stark also died, so it
Yes.
was
Correct.
Well, I mean,
So-
but that's why no one wanted to do it because
Yeah, it was about
Yeah.
who was willing to like lay down the sacrifice.
Okay.
for.
I don't know. I felt like it should have been a bigger thing. It was more just like, hey, time to do the thing now. Like it's available to do it all times, but now we're
Well,
having
I mean-
eye contact, and you should do it right
Well,
now.
Well, the original
the
plan-
implication that I got was that Doctor Strange was confirming to Tony that this is our one shot. This is it. This is the
Mhm.
moment. So that's why Tony does it. Otherwise,
Yeah.
like
Mhm.
he would have kept
I-
trying to do anything.
The
he could.
original plan was to get the stones as far away as possible, and that's why Captain Marvel was gunning for the car.
Yeah, yeah. And,
But
but the
once
car,
that failed,
the car got
exploded,
destroyed.
Then it had to be someone
Yeah.
else had to
So
use
now
the
the
stones.
literally the only solution was to use the stones at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess, but I can't help to feel like Clint had it down there. He could have theoretically, in theory,
Well,
he could have.
That's what I was saying yesterday.
Clint-
Like
Clint-
anybody with the gauntlet
Clint
could.
had it when the time machine was still around, though. The plan was to get it to the time
Yeah.
machine.
And also, did that huge ship go through the portal?
Yes.
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 But
Somehow. And it didn't, and they
mean,
never
what?
noticed, and they never noticed
what-
that it
what-
was destroying their facility on the way out.
Yeah.
I was just confused
It's
by
like
that. I was
huge
like, it looks
explosion,
really.
and they didn't do anything.
Nah, I don't care.
Yeah, I
I thought
they
Amy was
would've-
dead too. When that thing went down, when the exploded,
Yeah,
I
I
was like,
thought-
oh, he's
I
totally
know.
dead.
I was
But
like,
wait,
a bunch of
yeah.
heroes just died right there.
Oh, yeah.
100%.
Well,
We
yet
hadn't
they
seen
all
the song.
The
lived.
thing really is, because it took a while to
Mhm.
muster up the strength to actually do the snap. Like Hulk is just a super powered gamma radiation being. It took him a long time to even concentrate enough to snap, and it screwed up his arm in the process. Tony, the suit was probably what bought him just a little extra time. Anybody else may have even died before they could have
Yeah.
even done the snap if they're just a regular person.
Yeah,
Captain Marvel could have done it, but not. I don't think Hawkeye could have physically withstood it.
Captain Marvel and Thor are the only people who I think would have been able to do it.
And survive,
Yeah, and survive.
but like just a little bit.
Yeah, I also subscribe to the notion that Tony Stark's suit was the reason why he was able to actually snap his finger. Otherwise, had he not had that, he would have just died immediately.
Oh yeah.
I do feel like they should have just jumped in the orange portal and just get out, though. I do
Maybe.
feel that.
Send
was
send
still-
Thanos to Antarctica.
Yeah.
Could have.
Yeah, and also the
See-
Ant-Man could have done his deed as well.
Okay,
Just
no,
like-
I just realized, yeah, man. The true mission.
Yeah, man.
Doctor Strange could have literally just opened a portal and they
No,
the gauntlet.
you see, but Captain Marvel destroyed their Thanos' big ship and it landed in the water and threatened to flood the area. So Doctor Strange had to stop the flood
But
from
did you
happening.
see how many
Thank you,
other
man.
wizards were there? Like
Thank you.
Wong could have
Yeah,
done it. Like, he
apparently
was
not.
there.
Nope. Doctor Strange had to do it. He had to take care of
Oh
the
my
problem
God.
that
See,
Captain
when-
Marvel
when-
caused.
It was in
Whenever-
his
Whenever things like this always come up, it's the same thing to me. It's like,
Yeah.
I mean, yes, they could have done that, but you got to understand that we are thinking about literally every possibility that they could have done
yeah.
after the fact with hindsight. But like for them, they are literally in a war zone trying not to die.
I could almost
Sometimes,
say this about any other movie.
sometimes
Yeah.
things just
Mhm.
slip your mind.
Yeah.
Like why didn't Doctor Strange just decapitate Thanos with the portal or whatever? It's like he just didn't think about it. He was in the middle of a fight. He was just doing what he could.
No,
In Infinity
but he
War,
had
why
seen
did
it.
all why did all the Wakanda Avengers attack Thanos one by one? Why didn't they attack him at the same time in Infinity War? It's like because movie. It's like
Because they were just in the moment. Like they're not coordinating. They're desperate. They're just
Mhm.
trying to stop him.
Mm-hmm.
It makes complete sense. Like if you think that you are going to be in a situation and you're not going to make a dumb mistake like that, you're wrong. You would.
Mhm.
You'd slip up.
No, I'm just perfect. I would have got it.
Why
down the first
didn't
time.
Thor aim for the head? Because he wasn't thinking. he thought he had him. That's all.
Yeah.
Why didn't Ant-Man? Yeah.
I mean,
No,
that's
you
what
never know.
Infinity War is all about, is them screwing up multiple
Why
times
didn't
trying
Ant-Man
to
go
take
up
him down.
Thanos' butt?
Yeah, that made it
He
an
didn't
instant
think of it.
zero.
His ace.
Instant,
I mean, he
no,
probably thought of it, but
no, they definitely.
It was like, ah!
knowing him
Phil.
and Scott.
Very unpleasant.
Also, someone audibly said "ha" really loud when Thanos snapped his fingers and it didn't work, and that was hilarious. To me.
Got him.
I thought that was a great moment. I was like,
Gotcha
I'm glad this
I am inevitable.
one, yeah. Yeah, it
So
was
it
like
was
down.
like such a satisfying sound too. Just
Oh,
a
yeah.
little clank.
The hollow clank.
I am
It's like,
inevitable.
just a prank.
Yeah, got him. It's a lie.
It's a lie.
I am Iron Man.
Norway was in this movie as well. That's cool.
Indeed, it was.
I
Yeah,
laughed
bro,
as
they
if
showed your
everyone
house.
In the,
Oh, that was like
It's-
the ugliest looking scene.
really? But like, I don't know if anyone else got this. You guys probably didn't get in this theater, but as that scene opens, right, and it just says Asgard, and then it just says under there Tønsberg. When that little like just normal Norwegian town pops up, the entire theater laughs out loud because it's just the most
Random.
normal, nothing weird happens, just like a rig. And yeah, so it's just kind of it would
It's like
be
if some random farm town in America pops up on screen.
yeah. It would be like it would be like the dark castle of darkness, and then under it just says Ohio.
Yeah.
That's the kind of that's the kind. So for Norwegian audience, I thought that was neat.
That's awesome.
That's funny.
Yeah,
That's
it was really funny.
cool.
Yeah, it's
Thanks for the
So-
insight, bro.
very peaceful, nice little town.
Yeah.
It's just a train ride
So-
from here. Just- yeah.
I love that Tony truly was, after all this time, the key to defeating Thanos because
Yep.
he's the one that built them a new gauntlet. He's the one
And
that
figured out
ended up
time
using
travel.
it.
Mhm.
If
Time
had Tony
travel,
died in
like-
Infinity War, it would be over.
Yeah.
Doctor
So
Strange
that was
knew.
really cool, and it's cool to see that Doctor Strange didn't really contradict himself either. I like
Yeah.
that they really paid attention to that when he said, "I'll let you die before."
He had
Yeah,
one line of
Doctor-
dialogue in the movie, didn't he?
anything
Doctor
happened
Strange
to the
straight
stone.
up Harry Potter, like Dumbledore, Tony Stark. He
Yep.
raised him to die at the right time.
Mhm.
Feels bad, man.
Can I briefly go over some of the controversies with this movie and why I don't think they're, I guess, valid? Or there's like three that come to mind.
Hulk dabbing.
No, that's kind of minor.
Okay.
That just
Okay,
kind of
go on.
falls
The
into
SJW
I
Double
honestly don't care. People need to get over
humor
like
that-
the whole like, oh, it's cool to hate dabbing thing. It's kind of it's.
I just think it's
old.
Nobody-
just-
nobody
it's just
cares
as
at
old
this
as
point.
dabbing itself.
Yeah,
Well-
hating dabbing is worse than dabbing.
Yeah, people aren't going to too crazy lengths about that. It just kind of falls into the other Marvel humor discussion. The three big controversies are: number one, people don't like what they did with Thor. We already discussed that. A lot of us think it was fine. Number two is people. This is the big one that people keep coming back to: is Cap's ending and whether or not it is character
Oh, boy.
assassination. And I want to briefly address this because there's two routes to take, one of which is talking about the logistics of time travel, and the other is just the spirit of his character. But I have a few points to say about it. People feel that it's very out of character for Cap to have gone back to the past to live out his life essentially with the curse of knowledge from the future. Knowing what's going to happen in life, both in terms of large-scale world events like 9/11 or wars, but also smaller-scale personal events like Bucky being brainwashed or Hydra being inside S.H.I.E.L.D. while he's married to Peggy, who's director of S.H.I.E.L.D., and not telling her. And
I imagine that was something that Cap had come to terms with going into the past, was that he had like this conflict of should I, shouldn't I?
Mhm.
But the whole point of that scene was to show that he finally decided, you know what? I'm going to focus on me for once.
yeah,
And
like here's my thing about this scene. People are comparing it to Luke from The Last Jedi. As terms of a complete character betrayal. The reason why it's not that
People were wrong about that too.
Yes. The problem with The Last Jedi, like I would have been fine if Luke had, forsook his past character. I just wanted to see what led him to make
Right.
that choice, which The Last Jedi did not
it was
show.
the execution of that had a
They
problem.
did very botched like flashbacks and very poor reasons, but the journey that Cap's been on, him and Tony they've almost swapped places. Like back when they were fighting in Avengers, Tony is the one who laid down his life and made the sacrifice play to save the world, and Cap is the one who took Tony's advice from the end of Age of Ultron and decided to actually have a life for the first time in his life. His entire life has been dedicated to fighting wars, being a soldier, helping his country, helping people. When all's said and done and the day's saved, Cap takes a little bit of time to be selfish and pursue some personal happiness. Does that assassinate his character? No.
Absolutely not.
That is character development. And I think what people aren't realizing when they criticize it is development does not always have to be, I say positive, not to say what Cap did was negative, but I guess just in the sense of being altruistic. Development doesn't always have to just be going higher and higher. Sometimes you can flip, sometimes you can regress. Like Thor's arc is a complete regression.
Yeah.
He's learned his life. He was super immature. He grew up. He needed to take responsibility for his people.
Thor had his redemption run already.
Yeah, and now Thor is going back. Now Thor is
so many different ways.
Now Thor's like abandoning his people to go screw off with the Guardians of the Galaxy. Why? Because it makes sense. We've seen how he's got here, and he's
we understand why he's doing it.
Cap, he's done this. We've been in how many movies with him? Of him just like putting everything before himself. In this final hour,
and very obviously hating literally every aspect of it the entire way too. Always constantly being super depressed and never happy with what's going on in his life.
Yeah. So
it makes sense.
I think people are being a little too hard on that
where
aspect.
He was like, 70 years ago, I froze in the ice and missed my chance at the love of my life. Like that part was like, oh, that's heavy.
Yeah. So that's like the number one thing.
Yeah.
I'm pretty lukewarm towards the movie as a whole, but I really liked them ending on them just dancing. I really felt
that
like
is
another
moment.
I really felt like that was.
Excited
I
about
was.
that.
Yeah, I was like towards the end. I was just like, okay, yeah, we get it. It's the ending. What is like the end scene that they're gonna cut to? And it was a very. That's the thing that even I've picked on is just like, oh, he never got that dance, and he finally. Got that dance.
Yeah.
And that was a
I mean,
nice
the end
bit
of-
of closure. I love that
'Cause even
that they
if-
ended on that shot.
In the end of the first Captain America movie, like the last thing that Cap says is that he had a date, and he finally that was set up from his very first movie that he wanted to go back,
100%.
which is.
So I'm like,
well
I'm totally
done.
fine with Cap's character arc. I think it's
Yeah.
100% wonderful. Thor's not as much, but not because of this movie, just because his first two movies were kind of not great. It's really just Ragnarok and this movie, which have essentially reset his character back to Thor 1 levels, just with some life experience. So now hopefully they can take him and run with him in the future. And Tony's arc is basically perfect. So when you look at the movie, really the other way to address the Cap problem is him stopping world events. Could he even do that, or did he even do that because of, say it with me everyone, time travel logistics? And this is the big conversation, which I don't know how much we want to actually talk about because we are already at the 2-hour mark.
Oh,
But
geez.
there's a lot of controversy about
One and a half.
not so much 2 hours, like 1.5. Yeah. There's a lot of controversy about how time travel in this movie works. A lot of people are saying it does not make sense. A lot of people aren't understanding, completely irregardless of which side ends up being right, because I know, Var has his take, a lot of people have their take. The point, I guess, is no one really seems to be able to figure it out, which could be a fault with the movie if you want to go that route, that they didn't do a good job explaining it. Reddit is just chock full of dozens of threads and posts of people, saying, is this multiverse theory? Is this a causal loop? Is this, time is relative to your own fate? Is this whatever? How can Cap be on the bench at the end if he went back in time to live his life? What happened to, Alt Loki with the Tesseract? And we've had a few discussions off air. And I was wondering if, Var, you could give an abridged version, kind of like what you wrote down, of your logic
Well,
here.
can I just say something
sure.
about Cap first?
If
if he goes back in time, whether or not he's in a different timeline, or if people want to believe that he went back in the prime timeline. Stuff is going to happen in the world regardless of his involvement. I think he was confident that since there's another version of him already in whatever world that he's in, he'd be able to take care of it. I don't think he had to get too worried about, like, oh, what if I
That's what
don't
I was
step
saying
in?
as well. Yeah, I agree with that point. It's like so Messo's right in the fact that it makes sense for the character. It's not character assassination because this is obviously what he would want and would do. It makes sense within the character, and also in conjunction with that, there is another Captain America who is going to save the day. That's already set in stone. So the fact that this Captain America is deciding to retire is completely fine because the day will still be saved regardless. Now, you could obviously make the case like, well, he could save it sooner and save some lives, maybe.
Save Bucky.
But he knows it's all going to lead to somewhere positive. So
Yeah.
it makes more sense for him as a character to just decide to retire and live life.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, people, part of life is death. So
Death-
it is kind of
Death
just like
is inevitable.
a fact of reality. Yes,
Indeed.
So you can't save every single life.
No.
But yeah, so in terms of the time travel, I think I've got a pretty good grasp on it. The main premise behind the way time travel works in this film is that it's rejecting a lot of the tropes and the way time travel works in pretty much every other time travel based movie. It is a form of multiverse time travel, but it's a bit different. It's being kind of like explained in a bit of a different manner, because essentially you have different timelines and they can kind of branch and become different things. But as far as the film's like explanation of it, there really is only one timeline that matters, and the one timeline that matters is the one that you are in. So
Yes.
any other timeline, any other branch, any other any other possibility
Does not exist.
does not exist. Exactly. It's only the one that you are in. So let's think about it this way. I actually think Hulk explains it perfectly. Like, I don't think there's a better way to explain it. He's like, all right, you can't change the future because if you travel to the past, that past is no longer the past. It becomes your present. And the future that you left behind isn't your future, it's your past. Right?
Yep.
So instead of thinking of it like a bunch of timelines that are branching out like a tree, it's only one timeline, and you're just taking pieces and moving it forward. Time is always going forward, and sometimes you can pick a piece from the end of the timeline, move it to the beginning of the timeline, but no matter what, you're still going forward through that line. So it's always one timeline. So when you go back in time to say 2012, the Avengers, and you're messing about in that world, you don't have to worry about seeing your past self and affecting the future because the future already happened. The future that you left happened. No matter what, you still retain your memories because the current 2012 that you're in isn't the past, it's the present. So instead of thinking of it like you're traveling to the past, really all you're doing is traveling into a memory. It's like a picture, like a recreation, like a recreation
You're
of what the
traveling
past
to
was.
someone else's present.
Or like a save state in a
Yeah.
video game.
Right. So Mange actually made a very, very good comparison that I think is the perfect way to look at it, because you can observe. This is why I think this time travel is the most realistic example of how time travel would work in real life, is because you can observe this by like going to a video game, and as you're playing through the campaign, you make save points during important moments. So like Kingdom Hearts, for instance, there's boss battles. You want to replay those boss battles, you make a save before the boss battle, fight the boss, and continue playing the game. Later on, if you want to go back and replay that boss battle, you can go to that save point and play the boss battle. But here's the thing. No matter what you do, when you go to that save
100%
point,
progress is still there.
when you go to that save point to battle the boss, it's going to be a different scenario than when you originally battled the boss. Even though it starts from the same point, it's a new reality. It's not the same situation. But just because you're battling the boss and something different happens, doesn't mean your 100% save point later down the line changes. It's still its own thing. It doesn't get affected by you battling the boss again in your save point. That's how time travel works. So you can, in fact, let's say you make it to the end of the game and you realize, I kind of wish I had spent some time actually gathering resources to get the ultimate weapon to beat this boss, because I feel a little underpowered. But I feel like it's too late now to do it in my current save, so I'm actually going to go back to the save point before the ending so that I can get the new weapon and fight the boss that way. That's basically what they're doing in Endgame when they go back and get the stones. They're just going back to a previous save point and doing it differently.
All just epic gamers.
So
Yeah.
Loki
Yes.
is
Now,
separate in this.
this does bring up the question of what happens to those different saves. Do they is there any sort of continuation, or do
Nothing
they just
happens.
freeze as soon
They
as
stop once you leave a time, it ceases to exist. Because once again, time is relative to you. The only timeline that matters is the timeline you are in, right? So I'm getting a call from Belleville, North Carolina, wherever that is.
I'm getting a call from the
Wonderful.
past.
I answer the phone. It's like it's me, and he's like, "Am I too soon?"
I'm too soon.
No. So yeah. So like
it's
everybody's
like watching
asking.
a ball roll down a hill, but it's not leaving a trail.
Right. So think about it this way. You travel back to a previous save where you're about to fight a boss, and in that fight, you're bringing the boss down to its final hit point. Right. You need one hit on that boss to beat it, but then the boss activates its worst move. Right. The one move that you know is going to kill you, and you're going to lose the fight. So then you pause the game and you reload the save. Well, what happened to that boss fight? Nothing. It stops existing. It didn't happen. So when you travel to 2012 and Loki steals the cube and teleports out of there and they leave, well, what happens to Loki? Nothing. It stopped existing. Nothing happened to Loki. That doesn't matter anymore because the timeline that matters is the one that you're in.
Now in Loki's present, there's something going on, and like in that person's present,
is no
you
Loki's
follow
present.
that story.
Well, yeah.
But if you watch it from his perspective, if the movie's about him,
right. So yeah,
to him, something would happen.
Yeah, so the rules of this is that time is relative to the person, the individual, right? So if the main character of the story is Loki, and in Loki's perspective, he sees a Tony Stark that travels into his past, bumbles around, and drops the cube, and Loki decides to take the cube and teleport out of there, then yes, in his timeline, he now has the cube. And if Loki's the main character, and that's the timeline you are in, that's the main timeline.
Yeah.
So what would
that's the
you
story that's going on.
I mean, I do like my save file theory. That's like my best explanation of the time travel, that where like 99% of it makes sense. But what about the ancient one and returning the stones to like close the quote unquote branches? How does that fit in? Or does it fit in?
So this I was actually arguing with AT about this. And to me this is pretty clear, but I guess it isn't, because I didn't really understand what point he was making, but apparently it doesn't make sense. But anyway, my explanation for this is that the Ancient One is trying to explain why she can't give up the Time Stone, because she believes that once Bruce Banner takes the stone and leaves her timeline, there's no guarantee that she's going to get the stone back. Therefore, she is screwed and her timeline is screwed. But this can be Although I kind of confused myself.
I don't know, the kind of vibe that I got is that if you go back and you take the stone, it like creates a permanent alternate timeline. Like, I think a lot of people think that as soon as they
No.
return the stone, it closes this alternate timeline that existed, basically. I think that's what a lot of people are thinking that was said in the movie.
Yeah, because they said in the end, like, they had to return the stones, but technically they wouldn't, right? But they're just trying to get the stones out of.
I think
That
they do
present.
have to return the stones. I think that was explicitly said numerous times. To headcanon otherwise that they don't is there's
Mhm.
nothing to support that.
Yeah,
Um,
they do have to return the stones.
Okay.
I'm trying to remember what the quote was as to why they need to do that. There's the
It was the ancient one talking about branching paths.
Mm-hmm.
And Bruce
right.
was like, well, we return the stones back to the moment they came from, then that would close off the path. They even showed the diagram of like the
Mhm.
path closing.
Right.
All
Okay,
I'm
yeah,
saying-
right. So yeah. So her concern is that if they take the stone and don't return, then she's screwed out of her timeline, because that means that Bruce is now in his own timeline with a stone, whereas she is in her timeline without a stone. But if he just comes back and gives it to them or to her again, then it's still the one timeline.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I'm not sure if that's like completely consistent with what they were saying, but I guess the idea is that in this temporarily made timeline, if they return the stone, then it would some people did believe that it would eventually correct itself into becoming the main timeline. Basically, even if like minor changes happen, then it will still like eventually turn back into being the main timeline.
Right.
But
again,
I
it still
feel
follows like traditional.
yeah, I still
understanding
feel like
of
that
time
that
travel.
doesn't follow the conventions that they set. And
I'm trying to understand what the problem. Yeah, because here's the thing. So the rules are, you can't change the past because the past is your present, right?
Mhm.
Meaning that no matter what, even if they were to return the stones, it doesn't actually change anything. So I'm not actually sure that actually seems to be kind of inconsistent with what they even say in the movie.
So
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, like, why would they have
inclined.
to?
I'm
wouldn't break
inclined to
anything.
believe that the Ancient One and to an extent Banner are kind of wrong on the subject, and there's kind of like things to
Mhm.
discredit them, like because she realizes that she's possibly wrong,
Well, okay.
and then
look.
Banner doesn't have the
No,
best idea, like best grasp
All
of
right, so-
quantum physics.
I wrote down the rules of how this works. So let me read out the rules real quick.
All right.
Based off of what is said by Banner at the start about how time travel works, when he explains that your past becomes your present, the future becomes your past. Based off that is how I formulated the rules of how this time travel works. I wrote this down. So, the first rule is that time is linear. No matter what point in time you jump to, you're never truly going backwards, as time is always moving forward. This is because rule 2, time is relative. Time changes only to the individual that is perceiving the change. As such, rule number 3, for the individual, multiverses do not exist concurrently. The timeline you are currently in is the only timeline that matters. Meaning, 4, your actions in the past cannot shape the future you left behind. That future is now in the past. So the accidental triggering of the events that would set anything in motion, like the Terminator, are not possible. As such, 5, you cannot travel back to the future from whence you came. Even if you allow everything to play out exactly as it did previously, it will never be the same reality from before. Right. So Cap throws a monkey wrench in everything. As such, 6, the events of your past are set in stone. The memories of the battles you fought and the loved ones you lost are never going to change, even if you move into a reality where they never happened. So Black Widow died, and she always will be dead, even if they move into a universe where she doesn't die. The one that you knew is dead.
Yeah.
Because of this, 7, you cannot accidentally erase yourself from existence like Back to the Future, as the events that kept you alive have already happened and cannot be changed. Which would also mean 8, the you of the past is not you, it's a different person entirely.
Yeah. And they demonstrated that through Nebula killing herself.
Exactly. So the thing with the ancient one.
Who is the ancient one?
Freaking wizard.
No, we're not getting into
The bald
that.
one.
Oh, okay. Oh, she was
It's-
neat.
It's the
I
bald
never
one.
saw Doctor Strange, so
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah,
know.
she's a wizard.
So here's the
She's
thing.
a wizard,
though. So
Harry.
the thing that doesn't make sense is that Bruce takes the stone from the ancient one and goes back to the future. But the problem is that means now that the ancient one he talked to is in the past. You can't change the past. So he can't actually go back and give her the stone because he took it from her, and that's in his past. So the best that he can do is go into a memory of the past and hand her the stone and go back to the future, but that doesn't actually do anything. It doesn't change anything. Just like how Thor can take the hammer from one timeline and go to the other without changing anything, because that doesn't mean anything. He just took a hammer from a memory. Well, so you don't
Kinda.
actually need to return the stones. It doesn't actually make any
I
sense.
don't know,
to
that
need to do
quantum GPS thing, I'd imagine, would take them back to that specific instance of what happened before, but I'm not sure. I mean,
Yeah, like here's my thing with this movie.
because they do return to their reality, their original
Either way
reality.
the cake is cut, there's a problem. Either with Cap or with the stones or whatever. There's something that's inconsistent. My only thing is that if I had to reason out what that was, what's more likely that the Russos made an error in explaining all this, and maybe there's a plot hole it's created, and this whole explanation doesn't necessarily hold up, or their entire risk-reward climax of the movie is a lie.
Yeah. They also might want to just get rid
I
of the
think you
Infinity
have to
Stones.
return the stones because that's the entire point of the movie.
Well, they don't
If,
want
you,
the
if that
Infinity
if that's a
Stones.
lie, that destroys the plot of the movie.
No, the point of the movie isn't to return the stones. That premise was only brought up by Banner to get the stone.
And then
But
carried out by Cap in his final act of his character arc. It's the point
Right,
of the
but
movie.
no, it's not the point of the movie. It's the point of Captain America ending his arc. That's all. It's the movie isn't about returning the stones to the past. The movie is about getting the stones from the past to the future. That's the point of the movie, to beat Thanos. It's not
But the whole final battle was revolving around playing past the gauntlet. You say keep it away from Thanos. I say to time travel.
only to get it away from Thanos so he doesn't undo the snap that they just did.
Yeah.
That's the only reason.
No, I think it was definitely about preserving the multiverse thing. That's why they made a beeline for the van.
He would have used it to
they
do
made
the
it
snap.
for the
van was
snap
so
people.
Because Thanos snapped too, like he was gonna do it.
No,
He
He
wanted
was about
he wanted
do it.
to eradicate all
the
life.
van was only important so they could get the stones away from Thanos.
Yes, they needed
That's
to get the
it.
stones away from him.
I disagree because there
that's
are way
the
more
reason that-
efficient ways to do that than the van.
No, that was
Like we discussed
No.
earlier, Doctor Strange can just do a portal and
Well,
teleport away.
how
well,
is
they
Thanos?
wanted to
but
put the stones
if-
back in time to get it away from Thanos.
Yeah, if they just teleported away from Thanos, then he still has a chance to get them. But if they
And
bring it
Thanos
back
can
in-
what? Just use the van to go back in time again.
They
Thanos.
could destroy the van.
Yeah.
You bring them back in time, destroy the
Yeah.
van. Thanos can't get the stones.
Yeah.
Look,
Yeah.
they reiterated numerous times that they had to return them to their proper timelines.
Yes.
We can split hairs.
I
whether it's the point of
understand.
the movie or
I
not,
understand
but it was in the script.
that they did say that, but that's the inconsistency that we're talking about.
Yeah.
Doesn't make any sense. It breaks the rules that they established in their movie. That's why we're discussing this right now.
I mean, I would say that just makes the explanation invalid. Like none of what, aside from Bruce's things that he said, a lot of this that you've written down is
Meso,
extrapolated based on that.
No, it's not. Those were the words that he said. The past becomes, I mean, the future becomes your past, the past becomes your present. That's what he said. That was his explanation. Based on that explanation, the ending to the movie doesn't make sense.
Well, the context of that was a specific, reference to time travel tropes of changing the past and wiping
Changing the
yourself out of
past.
existence.
Right, but exactly though. That's the point though. How can you wipe yourself out of existence? Well, you do that because you changed the past, therefore the events of the future can't happen, right? That's how that works. That's how that works. So, if you can't change, but if he's saying that you can't change the future because you can't change the past, then bringing the stones to the past can't change the future. It's the same thing. Wiping yourself out of existence or unracing or erasing what you did because you didn't return the stones is the same thing.
Now, if
That's
you
the
create
same
too many branches, could it break the time-space continuum thing? Like,
No, because if you're following like proper multiverse theory, there's like an infinite number of branches. Unless this movie is just
Well, unless they,
destroying that very
Yes.
concept,
or like they're
Like,
breaking it.
what-
Like they're
yeah.
purposely breaking it.
Here's the
but can't
thing.
and which is going to be really awkward when,
The
not
movie-
if, when Marvel introduces the multiverse in the future. This is going to be very awkward.
The movie makes sense up until the point where they need to return the stones. That's the only part that doesn't make sense.
And Cap.
And
Yeah. Well, I mean, the Cap and returning the stones
They're
goes hand in
tied.
hand. Yeah, it's the same thing.
This begs for a rewatch.
No, it doesn't.
Mars
It just-
rewatched it.
I think it just doesn't make
What
sense.
this begs for is everyone to finally realize that you shouldn't do time travel that often in movies because it never makes sense. Even this one, which is the best interpretation I've ever seen of it, it still doesn't make sense.
Well, I think there are just
It
multiple
makes
people
sense.
in movie that have different ideas of it. I would say Banner's not 100% correct, but a lot of what he said is confirmed by Tony, who does get it right in the end, because they have a discussion about it, and Tony like throws around the random words like, "Oh, you went through the eigenvalues, you went through the Deutsch propositions, blah blah blah." I think he knows much more than Banner on it. I don't think Banner's completely correct.
But Banner's
but-
right
No,
until
yeah,
the stones are returned.
Yeah,
That's the thing,
I'm
though.
saying that
we
I'm
can
saying the
observe
proof-
the fact that
I'm just
but we
saying
can
the proof
observe the
he's
fact
wrong.
that he's right in the movie, though. We can observe that he's saying
sort of,
you
but
can't change the future because the past is your present, right? Cool. We observe that. Nebula kills Nebula. She doesn't.
that's
cease
not
to
what
exist.
I'm. That's not what I don't. I don't have an issue with that part. It's
the
that
only reason they didn't change the future is because they returned the stones, and returning the Power Stone would undo Nebula killing herself. Blah blah blah. It's like you could BS so much out of this. You know, like sure, Loki escaped, but the only reason that didn't change the future is because they went back and they returned the Tesseract before that happened, which closed off that branch. It's like I could just say anything. And it may or may not be true, but I could say
I feel like
it.
mostly the end scene was more so just so that they could have like a very neat wrap up more than anything.
Well, yeah.
Respect that, X.
That's my theory more than
No,
anything.
It was them
That is
finding
not-
a way to
that-
retire Captain America.
That's what
That
I'm
was
trying.
exactly
That's
it.
what I'm trying to say is that that's the only part that doesn't make any sense, and the only reason it doesn't make sense is because they only added it so that Captain America could have a happy ending. That's all.
Because he has the
it's just a plot vehicle. It's not
Yeah, it's a
necessarily the
convenience.
logic.
They
of,
broke. They broke their own rules for the sake of giving Cap a happy ending.
Which I respect.
Yeah,
It's
because
the only-
everything works before then. And then once
It's
they
the
get
only
lost
part
in
that
it,
doesn't make any sense. Yeah, that's what I was trying to get at. Is that the logic holds literally all the way up until that very moment.
Mhm.
And the
only-
moment with the ancient one.
Everything else in the entire universe is completely logical in every sense up until
No.
that very moment.
This time travel discussion is logical up until that moment and the ancient one moment. That's what he's saying.
Time travel's wacky.
Yeah.
I was just
It
saying
is.
Banner.
Well, it
Banner's not entirely correct just because they have the scene before Tony shows up with everything solved, where they send Ant-Man through the van and he keeps transforming to his like old self, and then his young
Van
self
Man.
is
Well, no, but
teenage
that-
self. But then Banner's
wasn't-
like, what? No, I'm just saying that he doesn't have the completely correct idea of how to execute it.
Oh yeah, well, sure.
It's time travel.
It's traveling of
think-
the time.
I think my
But
new
see,
goal in
here-
life
here-
I'm gonna
here-
become a
well,
public speaker
the-
for like
the-
schools.
The thing, Meso, is that you brought up the ancient one as though it's a separate thing from the Cap thing, but it's not. It's the
No,
same thing.
it's the same thing, but they're very separate scenes. Saying the whole movie makes sense for 2 hours and 50 minutes of its runtime up until the last scene. It's not. It makes sense up until the halfway mark where
But
they
that
set up
scene-
something and then pay it off later on.
that scene only exists because it's setting
Which
up
is-
the Cap
You're
scene.
right. You're completely right. But when I say that the whole movie is about this, I don't mean like this movie synopsis reads the Avengers must return the stones to the past. I mean, they did a setup payoff. The Cap thing isn't like a post-credit scene. It's not like something that's tacked on to the end. It's a part of the plot. It was established that the only reason the Ancient One agreed to let them carry out their premise was because blank would happen. So blank has to happen for some metaphysical reason that our minds can't comprehend, presumably the destruction of reality as we know it, or at least the dooming of billions of people who would not just cease to exist because the timeline ceases to exist.
Mhm.
There has to be some kind of metaphysical consequence. And the reason I don't think like that's the inconsistency is because that's the premise. The Avengers taking the stones from the past to stop Thanos. They didn't have to have that scene with the Ancient One. They chose to, for a reason. They could have just had him
set
take
up
the stone.
Captain America going back in time. That was the reason for it.
Well, either way, her timeline's screwed because Loki ran off with the stone. In that case specifically, about bringing it into harmony.
In either case, there will need to be some clarification made, hopefully on the director's commentary, but hopefully sooner, once we actually get into having like Entertainment Weekly interviews about how this all makes sense.
Good
To be
luck.
honest,
Sure they will.
I get the feeling that there probably won't be any clarification. made.
There's just gonna be hand waving. It's like
yeah,
it's
they're gonna
time
leave it to
travel.
interpretation and never touch it again. I guarantee you that's what's gonna happen.
Well,
That seems
Doctor
like a
Strange
logical
2
decision.
explain time travel.
please no. Seriously, like this is gonna be my year of vindication. This is gonna be like LJ all over again. Just don't screw with it. You can try, and this is awesome. You know, we were reading these like Wikipedia articles about relative time and causality, and Haley was freaking out about how it destroys film theory if you have to,
In
about
this
like
regard, yeah.
about following a person's perspective in the movie, and those are cool ideas. They really are. All this we're talking about are cool ideas, but it does not make sense from a literary perspective. Time travel rarely ever does. And
Wait
the
a
reason
minute.
is because people don't think it through.
Wait a minute.
Because it's impossible to think
Wait a
through.
minute.
It's not real. Yes, Var.
Wait a minute. All right. Let me go back real quick. All right.
Shoot.
What part about Captain America is confusing? That ending. I just try to think this through a little bit.
I mean, multiples. The big one we keep coming back to is how is he back in his universe?
All
sitting
right.
on the bench.
I actually think we might be on a fallacy here. We're thinking about it wrong, and we kind of overlooked something that was obvious, and Tooth Domino's just pointed it out. The Captain America that left is not the Captain America that's sitting there. The Captain America that's sitting there is a separate Captain America that traveled into their timeline.
Do you think it would be a different one, or do you think it would be the same one?
No, it's a different one. It has to be. Every single like we saw our Cap go away. This is a different Captain America, just like how Nebula is a different Nebula from the one that traveled into the future. They're two different people, just like how these two Caps are two different people. Just like how the Captain America that traveled to 2012 is not the Captain America
Oh my
in
gosh,
2012.
it's 2012 Captain America.
So-
He made it to their time.
In this theory, the Cap that is talking to Sam and Bucky would have lived his life with Peggy,
Mm-hmm.
would have lived a normal life,
He also survived Endgame.
also survived Endgame, but he's not the Cap that went back to return the stones. That's what
No.
you're saying.
Because
So he would
whenever
have had no memory of meeting Sam Wilson because he's a normal dude. He's not Captain America.
no
He
what?
would have never met.
No,
like,
I
if
don't
you're
think
saying he
that's-
did not
that's
have this
not what
life
we said.
experience.
What?
He
No,
lived out an
I'm
alternate
not
dimension.
saying that. I'm not saying that at all. What? No. When you leave the timeline, you have left the timeline. So once Captain America leaves the present, he ceases to exist.
Mhm.
When Captain America enters the timeline, he exists in this timeline.
And he absorbs all the memories of.
No,
No.
because this
Stop.
Captain America, the old Captain America, at the end of the movie, also survived Endgame. This Captain America also traveled to 2012. He also went to the future, battled Thanos. He also survived Endgame, and he also decided to travel back in time to live his life with Peggy Carter. We are
Busy.
viewing the timeline that Captain America, where he lives his life with Peggy Carter after Endgame. The Endgame that we are watching is an Endgame in which the Captain America that is there survived a different Endgame.
Uh-huh.
I mean, if you
What?
take it back to the save file analogy, it's like if you started at a certain point and you did almost the exact same things, but then you did something else. Like it's a slightly, in this case, it would be a slightly different version of Cap in a different timeline coming over there to them, basically.
I don't think there's enough evidence to support that.
What do you mean?
I
doesn't
I mean,
support
there's nothing to mean like that's. It's kind of like
how but okay, there, but we see that though. We
we
see
see that. We don't see any of what you just said.
no, we see in 2012 we see Captain America go to the past, right?
Mm-hmm.
And who is in that past?
Another
A different Captain America. So, what if we say, okay, Captain America goes to the past again, except in the 70s? Surely there will also be a Captain America that exists in the 70s, right? Who is currently frozen in time. Or not frozen, but frozen in ice, right? There's two concurrently existing Captain Americas, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right. So the Captain America in that timeline that traveled to the past to live with Peggy Carter lives his life. Meanwhile, there's a Captain America frozen in ice, who's then unfrozen, who then becomes an Avenger, who then lives through all the moments of Infinity War, of Endgame, and does it all over again. And that's evidenced by 2012, and there are two concurrent Captain Americas living.
It's possible, but I am kind of skeptic.
I'm very skeptical.
I feel like
there's two of everyone.
There's logic to it, but it kind of destroys emotional investment.
That's what I'll say. But I think you're
really have the time for it?
They're thinking.
I don't think that explaining it to where it makes perfect sense would like
it would never happen.
That
it's impossible to, because time travel does not make sense. Any story it's in, you will have these head scratchers. And I can't not criticize it, because if I didn't, I'd be accepting that it's fine. It's only fine if you are willing to say, okay, they did this, like X said, for the emotional moment.
Yeah.
If you can get behind that, if you're like, if you're like Haley, who just loves their last dance, if then you don't care, that's fine.
That time travel is beyond our comprehension.
Yeah.
That's fine then.
Time travel
There
is
is,
wacky no matter
this
what,
movie-
I feel.
This
Can't make
movie would
sense of
not have
it.
been
I
as
don't think
fun
it's
as it
meant
is
to
if
be
they had
made
not
sense
used
out
time
of.
travel.
It was certainly fun. It was very fan service
Like
and
this
funny.
movie would not have been as amazing as it was if they had not have used time travel.
That whole middle section, we would have lost so many good cameos and moments.
I'm wondering what he's typing because I'm curious
Okay.
what he has to say. But,
Bring it, man.
I mean,
Save
the
us.
one thing that I'm thinking is just like a tiny bit of film theory is that at the very end of the movie we jump into the timeline of Captain America. Like we're not like looking at everyone's. We're only looking at one specific timeline, one specific subjective person, and that's Captain's. Like,
See, I don't.
we're not in Sam's or we're not in Bucky's. We're just.
I
in
don't
that
agree
moment.
with that because
But-
then but then what's the point of whatever the stuff for Sam and Bucky afterwards? Because that's gonna be focusing on them in the main timeline.
But yeah, but just for that moment.
But then that wouldn't. But then he wouldn't have the shield. That whole Captain America, the new Captain America thing wouldn't happen in the main.
He seems to
timeline.
hesitate to talk about his time in this timeline too. It's either because of the fact it's not the same Cap, or just because he wants to keep his precious life private. Both are certainly things you could headcanon.
I think
My thing would be it's a headcanon. It wasn't stated. I thought of it as his private life because
I did too. I think that makes sense. The most sense.
But it could be the other way. Who knows? Could be not wanting to interfere with the timeline. I don't know.
He respects time travel too much.
Could be.
It's just like the 2012 Cap that they traveled to. That Cap is obviously not the same person as the Cap that we watch in Endgame, right? We agree there that they're different people.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
But so, like, are we disagreeing in the sense that Cap in 2012 didn't go through the same experiences as the Cap from Endgame, or what?
I'm disagreeing that Cap is the one talking to us at the end.
I never said that.
Yeah,
Cap was the one
nobody
talking to
did.
us.
He was just showing that it's proof that they can.
I was
there
giving
at
you
the
an
same
example
time.
of that there can be two different Caps existing at once.
I think that if the Cap talking to us at the end isn't the Cap that we followed in the movie, then the emotional resonance is like French toast. That's kind of my point.
See, I don't agree because it's the same thing though. Like just because that cap is a different cap from the one that we saw go away doesn't mean that the one that went away doesn't do the exact same thing. So
French
the
toast is really nice.
the implication is that
Thanks,
because
bro.
he travels back in time is the reason why he can sit there on the log old and have lived a nice life. So because of this cap being there, we now know that the cap that we watched in Endgame is living a happy life now.
Mhm.
Huh.
And then we cut to a scene where Cap is dancing with Peggy.
I just wanted to bring up
The implication being that the scene where Cap is dancing with Peggy is the Cap that we watched go away to
Yeah.
dance with Peggy.
Yeah.
Yes.
Meanwhile, there is a Cap who is old in our current timeline.
in the
Just
YouTube
had
chat.
experience and all that.
In the
Exactly.
YouTube chat, a guy, Hazash, said, "Plot twist: Old Cap is actually a scroll."
I'm down for this. Bring it.
He was hired
Honestly,
for
I feel
emotional
like-
delivery.
It's not that hard to grasp what happened here. Cap went back in time. He lived his life, all while the rest of the universe took place. That's the short end of it. Like,
Sure. Don't think about it. It's
I don't-
fun.
You are
Well,
such a.
If he went back in time,
You're right, though.
If
I
he
mean,
went,
there's not much to
wait,
think
hold on.
about. It's
If he was-
Really? There's not much to
Wait,
think about.
wait, wait.
Really?
How about that? You know
Hold
what?
on.
Never
Hold
mind.
on.
10 out
All
of 10.
he's
10 out of
saying
10.
myself is just
No,
a bunch of
guys,
fluff
if
and
he goes
sexual
back in
tension.
time and changes
Doesn't-
nothing, everything should still go as it should, correct? If he doesn't change anything, the timeline that is his present should not change.
Yes, but his present
Therefore-
isn't our
Their
current
present,
present
yeah.
either. His is different. When he leaves our
Well-
timeline, his timeline is not the timeline that we are following anymore.
And if it did,
Yes,
it would break
but-
their own rule about past not changing the future because he would
He
be,
wouldn't change the
change-
future because he wouldn't change anything.
But he changed it
Not
by
gonna
being
change the
there.
future because he's already there.
But if he and no one knows that he
Yeah,
exists,
Unless
if
you
nobody
subscribe
knows,
to the
yeah.
causal loop,
Yeah,
which
that
is the
is-
theory that
Yeah.
Cap was always meant to go
He
back
was
in time and
always
be
meant
Peggy's
to go there.
husband.
He doesn't change anything.
doesn't-
Peggy
And
never
that the
revealed
reason
doesn't
why
actually
they've
make
been so
sense.
cagey about Peggy's husband
So
is
that you could
because
see
But
that-
it doesn't fit her own description of.
I mean,
You're
in
right.
the show, I think people mention.
I
that he kept
guess.
the
So
husband
what? I
alive.
don't like.
On the show, it's a
it's
movie.
just
Like if he changed nothing and
you
he
could
just
just
kept
say
his
she got a
identity quiet.
divorce and then married the new Cap. Like,
and
I
you
don't
could
know
you
why-
could say a bunch of things. You could say anything that made
You
sense.
could.
The point is then
You know
that they
why
didn't
they left?
say.
You know why they didn't say it, Messa? Because it would take too much time, and it's not the point. The point
Which I
is
respect.
Cap got his ending, and that's the end.
I
of
can
the
get
movie.
that. I can get, emotional resonance,
He
but that
did
does
it.
not act as a shield from critique. It's just about your personal call whether
can
you
critique
value
it.
that or not.
You can desire more of an explanation all you want. That doesn't mean it's absolutely necessary. That doesn't mean you have to overthink all this. It's just it happened.
Look,
Overthinking is relative.
I don't.
You
I don't.
say I overthink,
Just
but I
like
think
time.
that you
I-
underthink.
I agree with that. I think like if it's something that actually matters to you, then it's well within your right to want to point out how
Yeah.
there should have been more of an explanation.
But I also
yes,
respect
and
both
I agree
sides
with that. I agree
and the
with that,
cinematic
but at the same
experience.
time, I don't feel that it is as senseless as you make it out to be. I feel like it is. Actually
Well,
pretty
see, the thing is, the difference in opinion is that Meso is sitting here scratching his head, and he's really annoyed at the fact that he's scratching his head. Meanwhile, I'm over here like, this is really cool scratching my head. I like being able to think. So for me,
I'm not annoyed. I'm ecstatic. This proves me
all this
right.
stuff is
100%. This is my year of vindication.
Oh my god.
well, yeah, but you're
Don't screw
ecstatic
with
because
time travel.
you get a chance to critique something. I'm ecstatic because you get a chance to think about something. That's the
High
difference.
five. Duality.
For you, it's a net negative. For me, it's a net positive. But either way, that negative leads to
I guess
you
that's
also
where I
having a
defer
positive.
to. It's like I don't relate at all to the
It's,
negative.
it's just like the Thor thing, where it's like, all right, sure, like you could probably point out how Thor being fat the whole movie is kind of lame, and if it bothers you, it bothers you, but it doesn't bother me at all, like at all. So for me, it's not a problem. But
It
I
looks
guess,
like he's straight out of Valhalla, dude. He looks...
which is why like the time travel thing bothers Meso a lot because he doesn't like thinking about time travel because it's confusing, right?
Yeah, it's an
Yeah,
impossible thing for us to
Mhm.
grasp.
Meanwhile, it doesn't bother me at all.
Ah.
So fair enough. But I see. I like thinking about how it works. I like trying to think about the logic and figuring it out.
Yeah.
So For me,
and
that's
I'm with you there. It's the notion that you just can't make sense out of it at all. That's the part where I'm like, okay, well, then I feel like you're just confusing yourself.
I mean, you say that, but
infinite
that's
loop.
the concept of plot holes. We've described two different plot holes up till this point. Either Cap sitting on the bench is a plot hole and can only be explained away with possibilities that weren't given to us,
Yeah.
or Doctor Strange and not Doctor Strange, the Ancient One and Bruce Banner were wrong, in which case that's another thing that could only be explained by saying they were wrong, which we don't have the
You know
evidence
what?
for because they said they were right.
Maybe it's a personal thing. Maybe I'm just having a hard time taking myself seriously because I'm still holding on to the magic belt thing.
Magic belt is a sin and worse than time travel.
Yeah,
What
no,
is
that's
the
right.
magic belt?
We're not talking about that. We're not.
You don't want to know.
I feel like if it
No,
was
absolutely
literally
not talking about
anybody
that.
else, if it was
Okay.
anybody else that had Meso's opinion,
If you want to learn about that,
it would
actually,
be
you
an
can watch
easier
this.
time
This
talking about it.
You'll never escape me, Vin. I'll
but
never
I
leave.
feel like because
Watch
it's
the
Meso,
Homecoming
I
review
just can't.
next.
I can't deal with
Okay.
you.
But yeah, I think it all works until Cap says that, because I can even like say that the Ancient One was just wrong and she said she was wrong. That's fine. Obviously, you can argue with me about that, but like I feel like the Ancient One scene isn't really that important in the long run. The only thing that gives that scene credence is the fact that Cap is now back and old. So if that scene wasn't in the movie, then the Ancient One scene wouldn't matter as much, as far as I'm concerned. So it really is the Captain America scene at the end that really ruins everything in terms of making logical sense, in terms of my understanding of how time travel works in this movie. And for that kind of sucks. But I definitely do not. It doesn't really bother me. Is the thing that I come back to. It's like whatever.
You want to know the great irony about this whole conversation?
What?
What?
In April 10th, 2018, the Russo brothers did an interview and said Endgame would be their last movie unless Marvel wants to make a story called The Secret Wars, in which case they would come back to direct the Secret Wars movie. And for anyone who doesn't know what Secret Wars is, the Secret Wars event began in 1984 and saw Marvel heroes and villains duking it out at a place called Battle World. The most recent version of this event combined various alternate universes and was a major turning point in the history of Marvel Comics as it combined various branching timelines into a single universe.
Okay.
They're setting
Which I
it
find
up.
super interesting. Not necessarily setting it up, but the Russos' vision of what they want to do and what kind of stories they want to tell involve.
No,
like, the only
I
thing
don't
they
mean
can
Marvel
back
setting it up. I mean the
is
Russo
storyline.
brothers are
I'm-
opening that door to themselves to be able to do
Maybe.
it if they could do it.
Possible. Who knows? But clearly they're really into this kind of thing, so maybe in the
Also,
future.
big Thwomp just said he let everything happen and the world was nearly destroyed multiple times because he wanted to be happy. But that's not true, because Captain America saves the day, and he knows Captain America saves the day. So the world was never nearly destroyed at any point. So, just saying.
He's operating under the could have happened sooner thing.
Yeah. Oh, and absolutely, he could have saved the day sooner, but the world was never in danger.
Like if he'd saved Bucky, then Tony's parents would have been alive. And
Yeah. Well, I mean, Tony's parents are dead, so what does he care?
I don't think he needs to go out of his way to radically alter the timeline.
Future, if he did anything to change the future, then he wouldn't have appeared at the lake.
No, don't.
Bring the
Don't.
past,
No.
visit this with the
Stop.
future.
You're bringing it back. No, just leave it there.
So yeah, Endgame was
Because that doesn't
named-
make sense. That doesn't make sense at all.
That doesn't
You're
make sense for the
joking.
prime
He would be in a
timeline.
completely different timeline.
I appreciate you, Vin.
He is in a completely different
He would
timeline,
be in
though.
his own different timeline.
He
Yes.
already is, though. He already
He
is.
appeared. He
This is
appeared in the
just-
timeline.
This is
where
why it doesn't.
the-
This is why it doesn't make sense.
It's just-
Man, you
this is just
killed it, man.
suffering.
You killed it.
This is just suffering. at
We've
this
been
point.
living in
See,
Cap's alternate
what this
timeline the
is,
whole
though,
time.
is that it is a different timeline,
Yeah, it's a
but
great-
it's not that different of a timeline.
Right. Sure.
We've been in the timeline where
All right,
Cap went
can-
back the whole time.
I am
I-
so
Just
out.
appeared at the
I think
end.
And I'm really glad we have this chat.
dead,
and I'm really glad
this
we're
dead
friends.
horse has been beaten enough.
I think Ven and I are on the same page.
Yep.
Or if it doesn't change anything, then we're just the entire MCU is just.
But that
captions.
doesn't.
That doesn't make sense.
That
The core
goes
rule.
against with what they say in the movie.
Now you're going back in time.
Everything
to beat that dead
everything they
horse.
say goes against itself in this movie.
You know what? You know what? You know what? Mange, that's the best point that anyone has made tonight. You are absolutely right. We can't take anything they say in the movie at value because it goes
There we
against
go.
what they say.
Exactly.
Closure.
Exactly.
You're right. Yeah, I can't hold Hulk.
It's almost like
It's
it's almost like Mesos said that the time travel rules are complete BS from word go.
You're right.
No, they'll steal
By,
his.
by
Here-
saying that
here's
there
the
are
thing, here's the thing,
rules,
here's the thing.
you're-
Literally everyone says it differently. Tony Stark has his own theory, Hulk has his own theory, the Ancient One has her theory. It's all different theory. That's the problem. I'm subscribing to Hulk's theory, but Hulk's theory doesn't make sense because the Ancient One's theory comes into
Also
play,
not makes
which
sense.
also doesn't make sense because Hulk's theory comes into play when they travel to 2012. So none of it makes any sense, and everything
It's
they say
just
is wrong.
a theory, a time travel
In
theory.
the
Thanks
end,
for
we
watching.
just don't know.
We just don't know. It's
I'm
all
sure there's a
wrong.
theory. If you
I
combine
think
it
together,
I would
finally
imagine
we reached
I'd
this
imagine
moment.
some of what
You
they
said that,
believe.
but I don't have any faith. It's beyond our
Awesome.
comprehension.
So anyway,
Some
yeah,
of what
ba-
some of what they
basically
believed
we're
is
all-
right.
Literally, we're all wrong because we're all trying to make it make sense based on what characters have said. But
I'm not wrong. I'm 100% right.
What'd
Well,
you
you're-
say, Ben?
No, you're
But-
totally
Saying it's
but
bad
we're-
doesn't make it right. Make you right.
It's bad because it's
Yeah.
illogical. There is
That
no
doesn't-
sense
it's
to make.
not.
No, I
Well,
think
being
I think
illogical
there's a
doesn't
way to
mean
make
it's
it.
bad.
real, it's
not
illogical.
bad being
One
alive.
day it could be real, and it will be very logical, but we just don't know that yet.
Correct. I don't like time travel in stories because it has a habit of monopolizing conversation. We've talked about it now almost as long as we talked about the movie proper, and the conclusion we've come to is screw the rules. The rules don't matter because they make no sense.
No, I would
don't like
say
that in stories.
the
No, it's
the
like
ma-
the rules because we don't understand them yet.
the majority
don't like that in
basis
stories.
No, we're
the
never
majority
gonna understand
basis
them.
of the
That's
time
right.
travel makes
That
sense.
is the conclusion that we made.
I'm so hungry, man.
Is that a sandwich? Is that someone's
Can't wait
sandwich?
for Spider-Man Far From Home. I like the little setup.
I
they
just wanna
have
go
here
to
where it's
bed.
like-
Can we talk about how
Everything is
contrived it
5
is that
years
all
in
of
the future.
Peter's classmates got snapped
no.
so they
How-
could
how-
all be in the sequel?
how
On
how,
high school.
how
Yeah, that's
convenient.
That's fake.
Everybody related to Ant-Man all got snapped. Everybody related to Hawkeye all got snapped. Everybody related that goes to
Half
school
the
with Peter got
schools.
snapped.
Yeah.
half the
Can
schools
we just
in
talk?
New
The
York got
MCU is
snapped.
now 5 years in the future,
I hate that.
permanently.
It's really awkward
Well,
to
I
me.
mean, we'll catch up to it eventually.
Will we?
Yeah.
I guess if they do enough prequels, we will.
guess they do
Yeah,
have
yeah,
prequels.
yes, and
They
about
are
we'll
taking a
catch
bit
up
of
in
a
about
break
4 years. How
to-
about that?
They're not taking a break.
There's no way there's gonna be a break.
Next year we're
Far
getting
From-
Black Widow and
Far
Doctor
From
Strange
Home is
too.
in like 2 months.
Yeah.
Right, but I'm saying after Far From Home, there's not going to be any more movies until next year. Like,
Fair.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
that's not That's not.
But then
really
they
a break.
also got like
it's kind of a break when you
Disney
consider
Plus
that a
coming
Marvel
out,
movie has
and
come
a
out
whole
in
bunch
pretty
of-
much every segment of the year for the past couple years.
A Marvel
Yeah,
movie
Every
come out
every
with Star
year
Wars?
has started with a Marvel movie. The middle has had a Marvel movie, and the end has had a Marvel.
Yeah,
movie.
but like the point of taking a
I know
break was that it would catch up to the
the-
5-year time gap, but we're not taking a 5-year break. Is what
Well,
I'm
no,
saying.
yeah.
We are
Of course,
downscaling
but
from
I'm
3
saying,
movies
like-
a year to 2, at least for one.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's what I mean. They're slowing it down. I guess they're slowing the pace.
Right, but we're still probably not going to catch up to the 5-year gap. So
I think they wanted to get to a point where the exact time it takes place is irrelevant. I was kind of reading about that. They don't
gonna
want
make
it to
the timeline
care
people
when it
very
takes
happy.
place.
It's gonna make the timeline people so happy.
yeah,
Yeah. Anyway.
that is fascinating though. We talked all that only to come to the conclusion that it actually there are no rules to follow. Literally everyone's wrong in the movie. That's pretty
Well, I
fascinating.
don't know if
to
they're
me.
wrong. I just don't think one of them is completely right.
Oh,
Look,
that is really fun.
No, see,
it's
here's
not
the thing.
fascinating at all. It's frustrating.
No, it's
Yeah, well,
me.
I know it's frustrating to you, so that's fine. But
I'm
the
fascinated.
thing is, you can't be partially right about time travel and also be wrong at the same time. Like it doesn't make sense for Hulk to be right, or the Ancient One is also right. You know, like because they contradict each other.
Indeed.
So
Yes.
that's what we're coming down to is that no matter what, someone is wrong. But the
So I
problem,
really,
the problem is that we see both of them proved right in the movie. That's the thing, is that Hulk's theory is proved right by when they go to get the stones, but the Ancient One's theory is right when they go to return the stones.
Which means there must be some kind of ethereal, otherworldly POV that we can't wrap our mortal brains around. That is right.
I mean, it's all
Actually, we
theoretical, though.
can.
It's not.
We
It's not
can,
a
because
law.
that ethereal mortal or immortal being that has obviously shifted this thing is named the Russo brothers.
Totally. And it's like that's very interesting from like a thought-provoking standpoint about how time travel isn't a concept in our world. So of course, it's whatever. But it's just it's very hollow. When I watch a movie, I like there to be rules. They have to be adhered to, and the characters have to find creative challenges. They have to basically challenge the rules and figure out creative solutions. I don't like, discussing a movie's plot and the realization being, there's nothing, anything can happen anywhere because there are no rules that we can comprehend as people. That's not cool to me, but I respect that it might be cool to some people because it does allow for cool moments. So I get that. Especially for emotional character arcs and resolutions.
Yeah.
Because it did have the cool Cap arc. And I wouldn't have done it any differently. That was emotional resonance, and it had good parallelism too, with the dance and the end of his arc. So it's whatever.
I think it's completely justified. I think it brought the perfect moments that we wanted as far as a conclusion.
Now I know why. Now I know why LJ isn't here.
No, he really didn't want to talk about this in this kind of setting. He wanted to just enjoy the movie without having some big debate behind.
How long have we talked about time travel?
Hour and a half, I think.
We have
Feel free to leave whenever you want.
Well, I can't just leave whenever I want. That's the problem. I need to go to bed.
Yeah, well, whatever.
Yeah,
So just go to bed then, X.
What? What'd you say about it?
Just go to bed then.
Just go.
Shit.
Just go.
Does anybody else have anything else to talk about with the movie?
I don't know.
The record breaking
Talk about all
that's
the big
doing
stuff.
right now.
That
it could hit
dude.
$1 billion in this weekend.
Yeah, it's gonna
I
be
hope
really
so.
successful.
I hope it topples Avatar.
I want this
Avatar,
movie
I
to
hope
crush
so, too.
Avatar
Also-
into the ground.
I'm
Sorry.
tired
Avatar is a
of
movie
Avatar.
that does not deserve anything.
Most forgettable
that's
movie.
received. Yeah, I do not understand how Avatar managed to be as big as it was. It is such a
Dude, I mean, Gamora's actress, she's gonna be pretty happy though. She's gonna be in 3 of the top 5 ever highest grossing movies.
Dang.
That is
Look at her
really
go.
cool.
Oh yeah, huh?
That is cool.
She is rich.
She must be banking.
she is rich.
Well, I mean, if they were getting a percentage cut from how well the movie does, then yes, they should probably be loaded out of her mind. But I believe Cap and Thor both got 15 million out of acting for this one.
Dang.
That's crazy. Well, the time travel discussion has a tendency to bring out the the logical debates or whatever. So let's not end it on that. Let's roll it back to the movie as a whole. It 100%.
That's what I was doing.
Yeah, you tried. But
You're not the host.
Well, that's part of it. Though. I mean,
Of course.
yeah, it's gonna beat out. It's already made.
And also I am
it
the
beat
host.
every single record so far.
He's not wrong. But yes, moving into closing thoughts, we can talk about all this for a long time, but I don't think anyone is in disagreement that this was probably the best send-off for the saga of the MCU we could have possibly got.
Mhm.
It had every single facet wrapped up into one package. It had great action, heartbreaking character moments, hilarious comedy, references, out the wazoo, references to almost every Marvel movie,
If not every single
if
one.
not every one.
They probably did it on purpose. to
Even
reference every
references to
single one.
TV shows.
Mhm.
Every character got their due in some kind of way. It was immensely satisfying. And I don't even know how to rank it. If we were to go around all you guys and be like, how do you rank it? You don't really. And how far you give it
10 out of
perfect,
10.
right?
Yeah, it's a perfect movie. I mean,
Perfect movie.
it is honestly. You can bring up all the flaws you want, but as far as my enjoyment out of the film,
Yeah.
not a single thing ever took me out of it. There wasn't a
And I agree.
single moment where I didn't like it. So that is why it's a 10 out of 10 for me.
I agree. On paper, we can point out flaws that are valid and objective critiques or whatever, but they don't damage the whole. The whole is
It's all
perfect
those
for what it needed to do.
Yeah.
all those negatives led to a net positive for me. So as far as I'm concerned, those negatives were just positives.
It's a
Yeah.
success. It's a success story.
Yep.
Did
I
a
can't
good
believe this
job.
this actually stuck the landing. I was very nervous. I won't lie. I was always very nervous that they would botch it.
Oh
in,
no,
like, the
it's
final
actually
movie.
sucking.
Yeah, exactly. Or like, I don't know, Captain Marvel would just one punch Thanos right at the end, anticlimactically. Or I don't know, no one would
No.
die.
I don't know.
think
I mean,
we should
in
buy
terms of
Dragon Ball.
enjoyment, yes, it was like maximum enjoyment. But on a critical level, like just thinking about some of the logical decisions of the characters and like where it would line up time wise and stuff, I think the movie is not perfect, but it's definitely got a decently high rating from me. It's definitely in
It's
like
tricky
my
to
top
judge it as a
tier.
movie because it relies so much on
On-
what came before. And I don't mean like someone watching this without watching the other movies. Just the things this movie does really right, it couldn't have done without Infinity War.
It's hard to see it without your emotional investment in it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Which is really the beauty of the
Hard to
MCU.
evaluate it.
It's such a unique kind of a property. And I'm really glad that they were able to ride it out and have all these building blocks kind of build on top of each other to
Yeah.
take us to this moment right here.
The success of Endgame is an even bigger success for Infinity War. Can just prove what
Yeah.
that plot can do.
The movie was
to-
big.
Oh yeah.
Having to introduce their best villain in the penultimate team up movie. It's
Mhm.
like, oh,
Yeah, dude.
good luck.
It's
But they did it.
so good building them
They
up.
pulled it off. Even though Thanos did turn into, I'm just gonna kill everyone in the world right at the end.
I mean,
But
I
that was
can
a
understand
necessary
that
evolution.
logic train. I mean, 2014 Thanos is not my favorite villain, but I can get behind like his change in logic compared to 2018 Thanos.
Especially after just how completely annoying the Avengers have been. They just
Yep.
like he's just like I have literally succeeded, and now you guys have
And
gone
you guys
back in
are
time.
still
You're
here.
you're not
I-
grateful after all. Time to wipe you all out.
Not only am I going to kill you guys, I'm killing everyone just because you were that.
And then I'm gonna make a new universe and all
I,
be
I
gone.
can't stand it. I can't. I just can't. Yeah, I get it. It makes sense.
Works totally. So, all in all, well done.
Endgame
Yeah,
was
they did
fine.
Well done. In game was fun.
In the end, time travel makes sense.
Let's not
I
get
don't
You
know.
just can't comprehend it because you're not smart enough, Meso. Sorry.
I still
That's
feel
what it is.
like I don't know what the save file thing, many world theory explains most of it, but not quite all of it, and it kind of
Comes close.
it kind of reduces the stakes of the movie. Definitely the time
To
heist.
Domino's, we were talking about the
I
Thanos
mean-
and Fortnite earlier. It was
As far as I'm concerned, the stakes are kind of thrown out the window.
Yeah,
as soon as
the stakes are only brought up. The time travel stakes are only brought up to be part of Cap, like as we said, Cap's like plot vehicle to bring him closure.
yeah.
So
But
I don't know.
oh well.
Either way. very
Maximum enjoyment,
No.
great send off.
It was a great movie. Very happy with it.
I'm
absolutely
extremely
the
happy
best
with it,
send
man.
off they could do
Mhm.
for the MCU. And at this
I was
point,
pretty-
I'm so happy. I'm so happy that there wasn't a post-credit scene or anything that built up to
Yeah.
like whatever comes next. Because now
Yep,
it's
this was an ending.
successfully
Yeah.
unsubscribe.
If anything,
Time to
banging it
unsubscribe.
just to remind you of
Bookend.
where it came from.
Yep, the bookend was way better than a hint towards
Oh,
the
yeah.
future. Even though people are very disappointed that there was no like X-Men tease, but they said for months they
yeah.
weren't going to do that.
Where's
It
my
is-
extra gag at the end?
Yeah. Then Deadpool shows up right at the
Yeah.
end.
just- oh man, I'm late. Dang it.
But no, that
I
pretty much gonna wrap us up. Almost. What's up, X?
didn't like the movie as a whole.
Go on.
Okay.
I
Thank you.
didn't know about the time travel thing at all, and there's parts of the movie that I liked, but me as a person, as my opinion, I went into Infinity War with no expectations whatsoever, and I liked it. I enjoyed it. I thought it was a lot of characters interacting with each other, and it was cool to see. It was funny. It was entertaining. It was greatly paced. This movie, it just felt a whole deal just about having this huge again. That's what the movie felt to me.
This huge
But-
again.
This huge
Yeah,
what?
just
oh,
just
just
a
doing it
huge
all
battle.
over again. Oh yeah.
no, a
okay.
huge battle. I think I cut out there because
Yeah.
I just like they
Huge
just
battle
had
again.
they wanted to have this huge set piece again, That's what it felt to me, and that's what I saw. But as a send off to Marvel characters or Marvel fans, I do feel like it's a good movie because the time travel thing sort of helped in that way because you could sort of go back to the old movies, and I like that part, even though like I don't enjoy it that much myself. But as people who go into this movie and want to enjoy it, I could appreciate that for other people, if that makes sense. Like that was a cool send off, that the way they did that with just going back in time, and so people could be like, oh yeah, I remember that movie, I remember that happening.
Yeah.
So I thought
It
that was
a little
neat.
better.
Yeah, but I think I just really liked Infinity War, and I just didn't like this movie that much. I like parts of it, but just as a whole, I think it was just more so what I was expecting, because I just wanted character interaction, funny stuff happening, I guess. I don't know. So
But it
Yeah.
was funny.
I mean, it makes
I like
sense.
parts, I like
The
parts of it.
people who got brought back never really got to
Yeah.
do anything. Doctor Strange had one line
Yeah.
of dialogue, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But then again, I don't really know what I expected of this movie either. That's the thing. So I don't know. But I'm glad other people enjoyed it,
and
and
you're allowed to not like it. It was
Yeah.
definitely in service of a gratuitous battle scene at the end. The only
Mhm.
reason why I'm fine with that, we didn't actually get one in Infinity War. If you look back at it, we got the cast split into two distinct halves. One half of them fought Thanos. The other half of them fought the nameless mooks in a pretty unclimactic
Mhm.
battle where it was kind of chaotic and you couldn't really tell what was going on.
I think
Around, everyone was in
ultimately-
one area.
Ultimately, that's what ended up making Infinity War not a perfect movie for me. Is because really, like at the end of the day, the one thing that I really need to see at the end of all of this, all 11 years of this buildup, is everybody together fighting the bad guy. That's the thing
Yeah.
that was missing from Infinity War, and that's what I got in this
Rip
movie.
Natasha
And
and
that,
Vision.
that's why that this movie is well.
Big thing I will give it
This
credit
movie is
for.
perfect.
The biggest credit I can give it is which was a big the previous movie as well with Infinity War, is that I thought it was really good, like very good pacing, because it didn't feel like I sat there for 3 hours, and I think that is an accomplishment in
Yeah,
of
that's a good
itself.
point.
I feel like it was very good, goodly paced. Can I even say
Yeah.
that? No.
Yeah,
Yeah, it was.
That's a
It was
very
pretty
good
goodly
call.
paced. I will give
It
credit
did
for
not
that.
feel like a 3-hour movie.
Nope.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really did.
No, it did
I've seen
not.
it twice, and neither time that I ever feel like
Yeah.
I was
It didn't drag
sitting
at
there for
all.
3 hours.
It
yeah.
was. I didn't enjoy the movie as a whole, but I still felt it was worth
Yeah.
going to watch. If that,
Mhm.
Yeah,
yeah,
it does.
yeah,
Yeah.
It meant an experience.
There
The movie of our
That's-
generation.
yeah.
This
You
is
gotta
the
watch
movie
it.
of our generation.
So
The next generation will be like, "Oh man, I wish I had seen Endgame when it came out in theaters."
that's my closing
Yeah,
thoughts.
just watching the MCU on DVD or just home media and eventually getting to that point does not have the same
Yeah, 'cause
effect
just think
that watching
everyone's
it in the
gonna know.
theater
In
would have
5
ever
years,
had.
everyone's going to know that this is Robert Downey's last movie as Iron Man because he dies. That fact will be out, and people who are born will just know that mine is limited to these movies.
100%.
They'll never have the shock of having him do the
God,
snap. And
Yeah, it's
so.
gonna be tough watching a bunch of
Tony.
Yep.
MCU movies knowing
Mhm.
that there's no Tony Stark.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
He's
Cap,
really good, guys.
Tony.
He's really good.
So a huge,
Ugh.
I guess, like a huge praise to Robert Downey Jr. for holding this franchise because he really did.
100%.
And
Oh, yeah.
his life is just crazy now.
Yup.
Him and Chris Evans. Like Chris Evans has also done so much.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
RDJ has
who
been
was
there
the
since
one who
start.
posted the picture that Cap has been in a Marvel movie every single year for the past 9 years.
Yeah.
That's crazy
That's
to me.
like every single year he's been in a movie as
Mhm.
Cap, which is probably tiring for him.
Well, I'd say.
But
Tiring's a word.
so,
I agree.
and then of course to Scarlett Johansson as Black Widow. We'll see her again.
Yeah,
But
rest in
she
peace.
did
She
a
got
Black
great
overshadowed.
Widow will,
That- okay.
Black Widow will
The-
return.
Black Widow.
the last thing I will say about the movie is I did kind of feel bad for Black Widow as a character. I felt like she was kind of it made sense.
Shafted.
Yeah, it made sense, and she did get her emotional journey in this film, but it does feel like she did kind of get the shaft, and the fact that she's getting her solo movie after the fact
Even
feels
worse.
kind of insulting.
Yeah.
And she wasn't there for like the final battle.
Yeah.
So,
It does feel a little
I
disappointing.
see
in
it
that
more
regard.
as like compensation. Like they already.
But that's
playing-
that's part of why it feels bad though. It's like, oh yeah, sorry about that. Here's your complimentary solo film to make up for it.
Yeah.
To compensate for the fact
I
that you
definitely
got
agree. They
screwed.
should have done the solo movie a long time ago. It makes no sense to have pushed it off this much.
Yeah.
Unless I
That's
guess
in-
unless the plan was
honestly, like-
always to make it a tribute type of deal.
You know what would have been
It's post-credit.
way better? How about we just skip Captain Marvel, that movie, and instead have the Black Widow movie now? That would have been
Yeah, we
That
didn't
would
need to
awesome.
know anything about Captain Marvel in this movie. She could have just been like Black
didn't.
Panther.
Dude, okay, if I had to make one complaint about this movie, would be because of Captain Marvel. She had no interaction with Nick Fury at all in this movie, and that bothers the crap out of me.
Fury didn't have a
It's
single
like,
line.
They set it up that whole movie.
Mhm.
They have the post-credit scene with Captain Marvel coming in, like, "Where's Fury? Oh my god!" And then the movie happens. Fury's back. You know who doesn't care? Captain Marvel.
Yeah. They should have at least been standing next to each other
Yeah.
or something.
Well, they were. He
Well,
came out
they were.
next
Yeah.
to her. He came out like right behind her.
yeah, but
but-
behind her, but not next to her. Like,
And,
she was
like-
standing by herself on the stairs.
It makes the post-credit scene from Infinity War feel weird because she didn't really do anything to tip the scales or be like a saving person. Really, she saved Tony's life, but that was. I didn't buy it, and nothing in her movie informed this movie at all. She could have been just like Black Panther, where he showed up in Civil War, basic understanding of what he's all about,
Yeah.
power set, then developed later on, and a hopefully better movie. That would have
Oh,
been fun.
Anyway,
Emily,
aside from that, personally, I love this movie a lot.
heck yeah, dude.
Can't wait to watch it like 5 more times.
Yeah, rewatches
I'm
are gonna be
looking,
fun.
I'm looking at this poster right now, and I'm really hoping that in like a few weeks we'll get a different poster with like the updated looks of like Bruce Banner as like Nerd Hulk,
Fat
and
Thor.
Fat Thor, and haircut.
I'll be honest, I don't know if I want a
Haircut
poster with
Doctor-
Fat Thor.
and Captain Marvel.
Yeah.
Fat Thor on a poster would be great.
Dude, Fat Thor with the 2 hammers? No, come on. Like, that'll
Dude.
be awesome.
Yeah, that version of him would be cool.
I died when Rocket City looked like melted ice cream.
That was my favorite part was at the very end when he was
They
like
call
on
him
the cliff.
Big Lebowski.
When he was on the cliff talking to Valkyrie, like when they were at the funeral, I was like, "Shave your beard, man." It's been how long? Why haven't you shaved yet?
They called Rocket a build.
But it's so nice and round. It looks so fluffy, like you could sleep on it.
All right, Ben.
Thanks, man.
You need to look at that beard again if you don't agree with me.
No, I saw it. It looked like
It was a beard.
It
I
was a
don't know.
great beard.
Looked gross.
Yeah, it did
You look
kind of look
gross.
stringy.
Got him.
Yeah, well, you look stringy.
All right. So thank you all very much for listening to this episode of the TTV podcast. If you have not seen Endgame and listened to all of this, I don't know what to tell you.
What is wrong with you?
We try. we tried a lot. Leave your thoughts in the comments section below as what you thought of the movie. Good emotional send-off, logic. Maybe you can crack the time travel egg that none of us were able to. Share your thoughts.
Isn't it kind of fascinating that they reference Lebowski in the MCU, meaning that the Big Lebowski exists in the MCU, meaning that the
Jeff
guy that played
Bridges.
Obadiah Stane
That's great.
Yeah.
also was in.
Obadiah
Yeah.
Stane was a former movie actor.
Tony Stark was able to build this in a cave with a box of scraps.
Remember what the scientist said to him before he died was to not waste time.
movie, and then saw that and almost cried
I
again.
teared up.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's good stuff. Good narrative
good
tissue.
job.
Narrative
Anyway.
Who'd've
tissue.
Don't waste your life, Stark.
Well, we'll see you all next week for another regular episode of the 2DV podcast. There was so much this time we didn't even discuss. Like Faber's new picture, like the Marvel fatigue straw poll, but we'll do all that next week.
And we can save that.
Yeah,
for
man.
next- yeah.
Babers had like 3 episodes in a row. He can wait.
Right.
So stay tuned next week for another episode of the 2DV podcast. No outro music this time.
Oh,
Sorry about that.
Hold on. Do you got a shout out?
Patron
Oh,
shout
never
out.
mind.
Patron
Okay.
shout out will be, I think this time I'll give it to Tooth Dominos. He was very active
Go
in chat
me.
and had good
Yeah.
insights.
Good-
And I
Good
appreciate it.
theorizing, Neek. Also, a shout out
Yeah.
on YouTube in the super chat. We got a $2 donation from Adrian G because
Oh, thank you.
on Callan's video I made a sarcastic comment and he took me seriously and he was defending us he to me, he thought I said something antagonistic towards TTV, and he defended us from me.
Really?
But then I was like, yeah. He was like, check their live stream. They said something recently. I was like, I know. I was on that live stream. He's like, oh, my bad. Sorry, Envy. So then his message today was, sorry, Envy, for the comment on Callan's video. It's all good.
Oh, dude, no, yeah.
Good sport.
Thanks for the support, bro.
I appreciate you.
I very much appreciate that. Thanks so
Listen,
much, sir.
yeah, honestly, because it gets tough, being criticized for criticizing G2 and also not being critical enough on G2.
It's very frustrating to deal with, and the fact that there was someone out there that was willing to point out how it makes no sense is like very, very nice.
Whatever you said, it's cool.
Thank you.
I'm down to change. Just pick the critique. That's all.
Yeah,
I'm saying,
like-
people.
You can't blame us for both. It doesn't make sense.
So we'll see y'all next week for another exciting episode of TTV or Brickfade.
Freaking Ancient One saying that we hate G2. Meanwhile, Hulk is saying that we love G2.
Will we ever know who was right, though? Tune in next time.
We never will. Vin made a straw poll.
We just don't know.
Vin, you made your straw poll.
Yeah, that straw poll, man.
You're a brilliant person, Ven.
Thank you.
Keep being you.
All right. We'll see y'all next week. I'm Messa.
I'm Bar.
I'm Ben.
I'm Envy.
I'm XX Trooper.
And I'm Haley. Whoa, we did it!
Farewell,
Yeah.
everybody.
See ya.
Have a
Group
good
high five.
See ya.
Avengers